Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome back to the oNiD Racing Multiclass World Cup. We are here for the penultimate round of the season, and we're here in Northamptonshire at the Silverstone circuit. It's a 90-minute race this evening, second of three. My name is David Russell. I'm delighted to be back with you for the final two rounds of this season. Took the last couple off to go and spend some time away with the family, and I'm delighted to be joined, as always, by the man behind the cameras, Trinket's Task. Trinket, good evening to you, sir. First things first, I just want to make sure, have you missed me when I wasn't here, and were you suitably well looked after in my absence?
Oh, I did miss you, and I was suitably well looked after, but we're getting a good rapport, us two. I think it's going good between us.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I wanted you to say, and I can promise everyone watching that I will not be slipping Trinket a £10 note after this stream. At least not to anyone's knowing eyes. Good stuff. Look, I'm really excited for this one because, like I say, been away for a couple of weeks. Penultimate round of the season, 90-minute race, so 30 minutes longer than we had in the first 5 rounds of the season. And with this one and one more at Spa next week to go, there's still a lot to play for. Qualifying very much underway. GT3 is out on track at the moment, and a very dark Silverstone circuit. Just gone past 11 o'clock in the evening. But 90 minutes, for those of you who aren't aware, and for those of you who are watching, good evening. 90-minute races generate double points, so we've seen quite a bit of change in the standings. I actually looked at them before starting the stream this evening. I was looking at them going, how on earth are those names at the top of the standings? And when I was kindly updated, that explained why that was the case. GT3 Pro is led by Leighton Austin. He leads the way in the Pro Championship at the moment after the 6 rounds in the books already. Miles Dixon and Johnny Seville in the Jag are the second and third drivers in that list. It's a Pulse Sim Sport 1-2 there. In the GT3 AM, it's Alin Zilzevic, Ash Coupland and Matt Holman in the top 3 for that one. And in the GT4s, Martin Thorpe, who wasn't up there when I last did these streams, he is leading the way. And then there's Carlos Plaza and Peter Jelinek who round out the top 3 on that one. Good evening to Tricked as a Thing, which is good luck to everyone. Trinket, I'm going to include you and I on that one as well. Good luck to us. I'm sure we're going to have a good one. But what I'd love to know is, what did I miss? Do we have good races the last 2? I'll be honest, I haven't had the chance to look at them.
Yeah, there have been some good races. A lot of the moments have been slipping my mind, but nothing bad has happened, for me to remember at least. But been some lots of good fights up at the top, lots of changes for positions, different people winning the races and such. It's been quite the shake-up, yes. Very good.
Good stuff. That's what I like to hear. Yeah, don't worry, I wouldn't put you on the spot and ask you to tell me anything specific. I'm not that mean. Because if someone did that to me, I would have no idea what to say. It's never the fun one to have. Now, we should see Daniel Tomlinson in the 77 Haribo Esports car coming through Luffield. He's going to be, I think, the first driver to put a lap time on the board. So we'll see what that's going to be. Takes a very, very inside cut on through as they go through Woodcut up towards Cops. And there you go, puts the time on the board, 1:59.1. I think we'll probably see that drive down a little bit over the next, 10 minutes until we see the GT4s come out. But Trinket, you and I were talking about this before the stream went live. We were looking at the practice session times, and it was very, very, very close, wasn't it? I think we're going to be potentially looking forward to quite a close qualifying session, and hopefully that will get reflected in the race as well.
Yeah, I think, I can't remember the exact number, but I do know the top 13, well, 13th was just over a second behind, so everyone in the top 12 is just a second apart, and I think it was about the top 10 were only half a second apart. So very close. We're already seeing the top 6, 8/10 apart, and going to start seeing some of those times come down. Alex Shahabi now with the fastest lap of 1:59.1. I expect to see a 1:58 soon enough, and it's going to be quite exciting at the front of this race.
It is, and hopefully we'll be able to see everything as well, because darkness, lights, that first corner as we go into Cops for the first time in about half an hour's time for the race is going to be a sea of lots of LED lights that are going to be very difficult to make out. Luckily, you can tell quite easily as Alan Zilzevic does go into the 58, so the 1:58.3. Yeah, very quick indeed. 8/10 quicker than anyone else. You'll be able to see the fact that you can actually tell the numbers and everything as well. It's difficult to tell what the liveries look like in the dark. As we can see, Jeroen Jongen, for some reason, has his left indicator on, despite the fact that it looked like he was going on a rather fast tour of the Silverstone circuit. I keep looking, I've got my track map on the other screen, and I'm going to drop this in because I don't think I've told too many people. But I was very fortunate for my 30th birthday in May to get treated to a single-seater experience at the Stowe circuit. And the track map I've got on of Silverstone has the Stowe circuit on it, so I keep looking at it and thinking, oh, that's where I drove my little single-seater car, so it's quite fun. Sadly, didn't get to go on the real track, but
what is the Stowe circuit?
It's like the little infield, so down towards the newer part of the track, like inside, in between the Hangar Straight and the Hamilton Straight, there is a smaller circuit. We won't be able to see it, I wouldn't have thought, on the stream here, but essentially it's It's a testing circuit they use for single-seaters. Or at least they used to. They're a bit too big now. You couldn't put a 2022 Formula 1, a 2023 Formula 1 car around it, for example. But they used to take out the old school F1 cars and take them around that because it was a better test and it was a quicker lap to test them around, so it was better for reliability than the real Silverstone circuit. So if you actually look at an aerial view, it kind of sits in the middle of the, I think it's the southern part of the circuit.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of it now. I genuinely never knew that was there.
It's really weird.
Yeah, I've heard it referenced many times. I just didn't know it was a tiny little infield track, because I know some tracks do have little infield tracks. Lots of them have mini versions of the track that's like a go-kart version. But I didn't know
that. You see like rallycross and stuff, don't you? Yeah. I'd never seen it before as well. So when I first found out about it, I had to scramble around in the race department forums to try and find a mod for it so that I could get it on the sim, so I could give it a run now before I actually went there in real life, and it was very handy, to be fair. Knew what to expect. So yeah, there you go. Anyway, back to the action. Leighton Austin puts himself in P2. He's P7 a moment ago, so he's started to find a little bit of space. Joran Jongen, the man who we're following around as he goes through the loop and up towards Aintree at the moment, he is sitting in P3. Again, he's put a better time on the board. Johnny Seville, third place in the championship mentioned, he's down in P10 at the moment. I'm sure he'll find some space, find some pace in a couple of moments. As we see a little bit more in the chat. Trick does the thing. Hands are too sore after Valencia yesterday to race today. Forgot how much enduros take out of me. I was due to be racing in that, which was going to be a day after I got back from my holiday, but sadly wasn't able to in the end. And then Dan Hearn says he must have weak wrists, which I've realised that was quite difficult to say really quickly without properly reading it.
Yes, Trick was my teammate for Valencia yesterday.
Ah, and how did you get on? I haven't asked you yet.
We started okay, about midfield pack. Times weren't the fastest, but we managed to worm our way up to 8th for an 8th place finish, so I'm very happy with that.
Nice.
Not too much happened with us. We kept it clean, not much happened. We got 3 track limit warnings early on and then just have to play it safe for the remainder of it, which seems to be a common occurrence with us in endurances.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm always the one who gets the majority of them or gets the drive-through penalty. And then I'll get the drive-through and I'll be like, oh, it's fine, I don't have any more track limit warnings. And then I'll just go and get like 2 more straight away. And my teammates will be there just like kind of shaking their heads like, for goodness sake, what is he doing? Well, I can say, I do know that drivers in P2 and P3 at the moment, Coupland and Austin, I think they won yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, for Pulse Sim Sport. I'm sure I saw Leighton post that on Twitter. So if that is correct, then congratulations to them both. I know Ash will watch this back because he's obsessed with everything that I do, so I know he'll watch this back and listen back to it. So yeah, congratulations to you both, sitting 2nd and 3rd at the moment and in the top 3 of both their championships as well. So good showing from them so far.
Yep, they did indeed take the win. Leighton Austin was showing some incredible pace around about the mid part of the race. Saying race a lot. But yeah, they were quite down about midway, but Leighton Austin was just putting in some incredible times and working his way back up through the field. I was too busy racing for the last hour, so I actually didn't know they won. Leighton Austin takes the pole position.
Wow.
57.8 now, we're into the 57s.
Yeah, I was going to say we're into the 57s. I was about to say we were talking about the fact we're going to get into the 58s, and then all of a sudden we just appeared in the 57s. Now, this is impressive. I don't really know how the YouTube tag naming convention works, but however you've managed to get Sim Racer as your name is very impressive. I feel like you must have had to have been massively ahead of the curve to get that one. But he is saying that we need to put another 50p in the meter because it is a little bit dark, which is fair enough. He's also saying the drivers are farting sparks as well, which is rather ironic because I was watching the Formula 1 with my partner earlier, and she's not the biggest fan in the world, but she likes to make her a little bit of fun out of it. And every time someone made a move into the first corner, she said it wouldn't count unless they farted sparks. Because they were bottoming out into the braking zone at Zandvoort into the first corner. And it's very weird, unless she's managed to get the name Sim Racer and hasn't told me. Very strange that they've both said the same thing. It's a rather interesting coincidence.
And they have said that they are G-Slev. But with the YouTube naming convention, you can call yourself whatever.
Oh, okay. So it's not like he can't be called Sim Racer. It has to be Sim Racer 1, 2, 3, 4 or something. Less impressive now, but I still quite like it. I'm going to go with my thought because it sounds much more fun.
Well,
At least to me.
YouTube not a couple months back introduced a at naming system. How everything is doing it, like Discord did it now as well. So if they were quick on it, they might have been lucky enough to have snagged the at SimRacer tag.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, apparently he's not my partner, which I feel a bit heartbroken for, to be completely honest. But that's fine. Plenty more fish in the sea. So what we got? Leighton Austin leading the way, 57.8. Alan Zildzovic just behind him, 300ths of a second behind, and then 3/10 back to this man, Ash Coupland, in a 58.1. I think that lap time would be, or around about that. And we've got Jeroen Jongen in fourth place, Alex Shahabi in fifth, Aidan Chatburn in sixth, Dan Tomlinson a little bit further back, 4/10 back in P7, Johnny Seville a couple of tenths further back as well, Sergei Felenko and Ollie Knowles, who we were just riding on board with, or just viewing anyway before he aborted that lap and went back to the pit lane. He rounds out the current top 10. We've got at least 3 people, Trinket, I can see. I don't know if you can see any more on your side, who are in the GT3 class yet to put a lap time together. And interestingly, most, if not all of them, I fact all of them are in the pit lane, so they'll be starting from the back of from the pit lane.
We do
I
have
should say.
one further down that you can't see, but he is out trying to get a lap. Trying is an important word there, I guess.
I was going to say, that is definitely going to invalidate your lap going that wide out of Aintree and onto the Wellington Straight. But luckily for Jack Watson, he will have one more bite at the cherry, because he's got one more chance to get through. That will be the one, though, because, of course, long lap here at Silverstone, one of the longer ones on the ACC track listings, apart from next week when we head to Spa. Although I say that, it is for some and not for others. I don't know how people get into these 57, 56, like proper sub 2 minute times, because I feel like I can throw everything at this lap, at this track, but until, or before since the 1.9 patch came out, as I keep referring back to, I can't get anywhere near a sub 2 minute time around here. Very, very impressive.
It took until 1.9 for me to get a 1:59, and that's all I was able to do. But I can fill in that Renault Racer and Nick Manders, 15th and 22nd, the 690 Porsche and the 113 McLaren have a qualifying ban, so that's why they are not. But I'm not sure why Jürgelis is not out on track.
That's an interesting one.
I can't see anything involving them.
No, I mean, Jürgelis is one of those. I mean, he's not actually partaken. In fact, he's partaken in. I don't know. It says he's partaken in 6 races. I don't think he has, because he got 10 points.
I did scroll up and see that round 3 Suzuka, they accumulated enough points for a qualifying ban. That was a few rounds ago, so I'm guessing that they just haven't done a race.
That is very, very possible.
Matt Holman, Multiclass, go! We love our Multiclass around here. It seems like every series we're doing is Multiclass now.
I feel like it lost a lot of favour, and then it's coming back with a vengeance now. What I'm seeing a lot of as well is the Multiclass, but not your standard GT3, GT4. Like, I'm seeing a lot of GT4 and M2s, M2s and GT3s, Cup cars and GT4, like that sort of thing. Where it's interesting to see some differences in classes rather than just your standard GT3 and GT4. However, this is one of those championships, at least from what I've seen, which has proven the point that GT3 and GT4 class multi-class works really, really well. So we've seen some brilliant action in the 7 rounds up until this point. This being the 8th one and the 9th round at Spa, as we mentioned, to round out the season next Sunday night on what is, I want to say, the 3rd of September. I'm not very good with dates, especially when it comes across the month. Here come the GT4s, though. All of them careening down the Hangar Straight, which is great to see. In fact, they all are. They're all very close together. So I'm sure we'll see them all kind of dissipate as we get into the final sector of the lap.
See them all piling up there. Let's try and find someone else a bit closer at the front. Not that Daniel Hearn's even further back. Let's just see who actually goes on their first flying lap. Yeah,
absolutely. See where that comes out. Qualifying, sadly, not as close as we were we were led to believe as opposed to practice from what I can see, but still pretty close to the guys up at the top end and the sharp at the pointy end of the standings. We'll see what happens in the GT4 class. Well, I'll be honest, I didn't really keep an eye on where they were timings-wise for the GT4s, but we'll see how they get on. Dan Hearn will be one of those who want to get his title charge back on track. Lost a little bit of ground after the double points round at Indianapolis last week, but hopefully we'll get a better running at this end. I can't see Carlos Plaza in the server either, so that's going to be a big hit for him. Because obviously he's, second in the championship at the moment. So Dan Hearn looking to make up some ground, it looks like. And the people who he's up against don't all appear to be in attendance. I cannot see... Oh, and I can see Martin Thorpe. Sorry, he's in the pit lane. And Peter Jelinek is a bit further back. He's 27th on there, but obviously no times set as yet.
We also did see Watson set their last lap, the very last lap that they could have done. Still quite far off the pace, but it will be enough to be at the back of the GT3 field and not back behind the GT4s, which is quite important.
Exactly. I was just about to say that. It's the important thing to note, the fact that, for those of you who don't know, if you don't put a lap time in the qualifying session as a GT3, you will start from the pit lane in this series. So I would argue it's almost as important, as long as you're able to, of course. Like I say, a couple of bans handed their way for being naughty people over the last couple of rounds, but it's important if you can get a lap time in, just to get anything on the table, even if you're not comfortable at that point. Like, get a lap on the table so that you're not then, one, starting further back, and then two, having to carve through the GT4s in the first couple of laps, who are all going to be really close and fighting for position as well. It's going to slow you down big time. So here is Ilpo Ruotsalainen in the 404 Chevy, the Bomber Chevy. Like, I'm not sure if that is a bomber jacket or some sort of fighter.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
a
thing. Fighter plane, but not had their livery work since they added it.
I'm glad it is that, because I feel like a livery based on a bomber jacket would be strange and not well appreciated. It's probably the simplest way to put it. Coming down the Wellington Straight now, down towards Brooklyn's tricky corner to get right, especially in the GT4s, isn't it? Because it's got to obviously manage that trail braking. You want to try not to miss the apex. Did miss a little bit of it there, and get that final corner, second to last corner, Luffield, set up properly. It's one of those, I feel, where you can gain loads of time, but you can also completely ruin the lap. And when these guys are going to be about a minute and 45 into the lap at that point, it's going to be heartbreaking if you ever get that wrong.
Oh yeah, very much. Just trying to find something at this, scrolling through. Just trying to find what my best time in a GT4 was around here, so I have some something to compare to. Because I think I'm much better in GT4 than I am in GT3. It's a stronger suit for me.
Yeah, some people suit those kind of different different disciplines better than others, don't they? There's a guy I drive a lot with in another community. He's got the rather amusing trait of being able to drive much faster the slower the car is. So as soon as you give him a faster car, he actually becomes slower. But you give him a slow car, super duper quick.
And they're all immediately faster than me.
So there you go. Dan Hearn puts himself on provisional pole in the GT4. Trick wondering how many people will lose the rear on the entrance to Maggots and Beckett's. I'm going to count at least half a dozen. I would suggest.
I've had quite a few incidents at Maggots and Beckett's in my time in ACC. I've had a snap going through the first one and ended up in the big pitch of grass. I returned on track and immediately got a drive-through. I've also had my wheel disconnect. So the only time that's happened while going through Maggots and Beckett's, so high speed straight into a wall.
Not ideal.
Maggots and Beckett's is a curse to me.
It's not. I can't think of any times where I've really, I wouldn't say struggled with it. I've obviously, everyone's struggled with it. I think I've lost the car a few times, but never to the point where I've actually kind of really caused any damage. I've been quite fortunate where I've lost it, but never ever found the wall. However, in my commentary days, I have seen many incidents through Maggots and Beckett's. normally on the first lap, and normally because people think that the race can be won in the first couple of corners. Hopefully, we don't see anything like that this evening, because nobody wants that. Nobody wants to see someone going for the dive bomb. And unfortunately, with Silverstone, it's quite difficult to send it into the first couple of corners because they are quite fast. So at least you've got that. As you see, Peter Jelinek going very wide out of Luffield and up towards Woodcote.
Yeah, he was 9/10 up on that lap.
Oh,
That would have set him right up into pole position. And even that lap where he went off, lost a lot of time there. He was already faster than his previous best.
I was going to say, yeah, his best was a 2:11.3.
Oh wait, no, I got the numbers wrong way around. It was only 2/10 off.
Oh, okay, fine.
But yeah.
That makes more sense. He goes careening through Magnussen Beckett, doesn't lose the rear, fortunately for him. Again, difficult couple of corners when you've got less downforce. And this will be one of those where it's going to be interesting to see how the GT3 cars manage the slower class through that kind of sweeping set of right and left-handers. Martin Thorpe, one of the championship protagonists, as Dan Hearn goes a few tenths quicker. He gets himself up about half a second quicker than his previous lap time, so gets himself down into the 2:09s, I believe. Martin Thorpe coming through Brooklands. That's arguably what I would say the perfect line would be through there, with absolutely no coaching experience whatsoever, but it looked pretty good. Keeps it nice and clean and tidy through Luffield. Comes through Woodcote, going to take a nice big cut of the curb going through there. It's not really a curb anyway. Across the line, a 2:12.0. That puts him, P5 in the stands for this one. Aidan Oak currently sitting in P2. Oh, there we go. Oh, look at that. That is what I like to see. Thank you very much, Drink, for sorting that out. Now I don't have to try and figure out what the best lap time is.
Yeah, I kept doing that by accident. I found this out by pure accident, because you know when you're driving with the Wii, you have a button mapped to switch your screens.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't have that plugged in. I'm just using my keyboard, but I have a program called MSI Afterburner that I use to do certain things, and I have an overlay, and that button that I use to turn the overlay on is insert. So I went to go hit it to turn the overlay off, and it switched. I'm like, oh, I figured it out.
I found that because I wanted to try a different overlay for the timing tower as opposed to the ACC one. I was desperate to figure out how to get rid of it, and I couldn't for the life of me find the button. And I ended up asking someone. I said to them, don't suppose you know what the button is? And he just said, yeah, click insert, press insert. And I did it. I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I'd looked forever for it, and it didn't even occur to me that it probably is in the control settings. I just didn't know what to look for. So, very nice when that bit comes up. I also found, I don't know if it's the same for you, but when I first turned the timing tower on in broadcast mode, I didn't have the lap times or the interval gaps, and it took me a while. I basically pressed every button on my keyboard until I got to, I want to say I is the one that brings it up. It took me a long time to get that right as well.
Yes, to get the times up, yeah. We've also got U for relatives, which is useful at times, but not so much.
Yeah, not for me when I'm running a broadcast anyway. Personally, I have to say, but there you go. So Dan Hearn, man on your screen at the moment, still sitting pretty at the top of the GT4 times. It's a 2:10 in the end. It wasn't a 2:9. But he's got 0.6 of a second back to Aidan Oak. Ilpo Ruotsalainen in P3. Peter Jelinek P4. Dan Lindblom in P5. Luke Sherlock P6. Martin Thorpe still a little bit off the pace at the moment in P7. And then Marco Elvin Blomqvist. Verdinia, get that right. Badem Habibovic and Luca Vidoni yet to set a lap time. But everyone in the GT4 class out on track. So I'd expect Drinkit we're probably going to see some times change, or at least we're going to see some cars on track in the last, 4 and a bit minutes of this session.
Yeah, currently all on track at the moment, it looks like. Yep, all on track. So everyone's going to be pushing, that's for sure.
Absolutely. You've got a yellow flag. Got two of them back in the pits now. Vidinlia and Sherlock back into the pit lane. I'm guessing Dan Hearn is on a bit of a warm-up lap at the moment. You see him just a bit of weaving down the Hamilton Straight before the braking point into Brooklands. And just hearing there, I don't know if you can faintly hear how much the first, or how short the first gear of that Porsche is. Which is very annoying when you're trying to go into the pit lane. Oh, Jelinek getting a little bit squiggly coming out of Luffield. Doesn't go as wide as he did a couple of laps ago, so this lap looks to be valid if I'm not mistaken. And there it is, yeah, puts himself up into P3, so that's a 2:11.0 there, so gains, what, 3/10, I think that was.
Yep, he was up 3
in the
tenths,
end.
not as much as he was before. He's already up 2 tenths through turn 1, now up to 3 tenths. He's obviously trying to find that time again without losing it around the last corner. It's always one of the most painful ones, is when you're absolutely flying and you're the fastest you've ever gone and you mess it up right at the end.
I've done that more times than I can count. I will not hesitate to admit that.
Also,
I've always done
improving
that. I always
his
do that.
downhill.
I always do that thing as well when I go really fast. Well, not really fast. For me, I go really fast on my first lap, and then I can never get anywhere near it again. So I spend the rest of the qualifying session just like, great, well, that's probably not my quickest ever time, but I just can't improve, which is very annoying.
They're not too separated on track. They're only a few seconds apart on track, but they're both improving the same amount right now.
Interesting. As I say, Dan Hearn, where's he? He's just coming onto the Hamilton straight. Just about see, and that was Jelinek in the background, from what I could tell. Looks like Ruotsalainen, Lindblom, Sherlock, and Blomqvist at this point in time don't appear as though they'll be able to set another lap time. So it looks like they're going to be, or their best possible positions are where they are at the moment, feigning any improvements from those around them. Yeah, in fact, they're definitely not going to have enough time now. Lindblom has left the pit lane. He might have enough time, just because of when he's come out of the pits. Martin Thorpe, his best lap time will be a 2:11.2. He will stay in 6th place at best. Vidoni enters the pit lane as well. Dan Hearn coming through Brooklands now in towards Luffield. He is currently leading the way, so he doesn't necessarily have to put too much into this one. But I did hear you say, Trinket, a minute ago, he was improving. So let's see what it's going to be as he crosses the line.
Yeah, this is a show-off lap. Jelinek has unfortunately lost some of his time, but watch this.
Whoa! Goodness me, Dan Hearn, take a bow, sunshine. 2:09.660. I mean, everyone's going to look at that and just think, oh, for goodness sake. Like, how's he managed to do that? Aidan Oak coming through Cops for the final time. So he's got one more lap, see what he can do. Best lap time, 1.2 seconds back off of Dan Hearn at the moment. I mean, that is an ominous sign for anyone in the GT4 class ahead of the race this evening. Jelinek now in the pit lane, so it's Lindblom, Vest, Habibovic and Blomqvist and Vidinlia, who are the only ones who can set a lap time, and that's Aidan Oak going a little bit wide as he goes through Chapel, and that's his lap time, or his qualifying session finished. Tyler Vidinlia, currently at the back end of the GT4 grid, but still with a chance to put a better lap time in and potentially get himself up in position. I'm pretty sure someone else just appeared again. That Marco L just reappeared, I want to think. I'm sure it just
someone did, because yeah, I saw everything shift around.
Matt Holman. Dan is an alien.
Yes.
That's your back page headline right there.
Yeah,
Dan Hearn, alien.
It's just Tyler Vidinlia is the last person on track on the valid lap, but Vest just started another valid lap, so he will be the last across the line if he doesn't invalidate.
Interesting to see if Lindblom will get another lap in or not. He left it a little bit late to get onto the lap. Oh, he's just going to miss it, is he? Oh, heartbreaking.
Only just
missed out.
Blomqvist has also started another, because it was just in front of Lindblom and invalidated straight away.
Oh, okay. Oh, God. That is not what you want. So Vidinlia is going to be the last person. Apart from Vest, I think you said he was going to actually be able to set a valid lap time in his qualifying session. We'll see whether he's going to be able to improve, or not only improve, but see if he's going to be able to gain any positions as a result. Comes through Luffield, puts that big American muscle to use, comes out of Luffield through Woodcut. Even Dan Hearn saying in the chat, what a lap there. Cuts a little bit of the corner, stays nicely inside, doesn't improve. So it will be Ralph Vest will be the last person to put a lap time on the board. He is coming through Club at the moment and onto the Hamilton Straight, so we've got a little bit of time to see what Ralph can do in the Apex Driving School number 3 Cayman, which looks a little bit like the Rexy Porsche in the, I want to say, the IMSA series, only with the pattern. I mean, I can't see any teeth or anything on the front of it, but seeing some slight comparisons.
I'm not too familiar with that one.
Oh, you need to go and have a look at it. It's beautiful. There's two of them. There's Rexy and Roxy. and they basically look like dinosaurs, and they're very cool.
I do know that Vesta's just come back from having lots of technical issues with losing force feedback in a race, so hopefully this doesn't happen to him again, because, oh, there he goes.
Oh dear, that's not what you wanted to do.
That's
But there you go.
qualifying
So
over
that
and done
is, qualifying in the books. Dan Hearn will be your pole position sitter for the GT4 class, and it will be, I think, Alan Zildzovic, I believe, or Leighton Austin, I can't remember which one it is, who will be the pole position man for the GT3 class. What are you looking at? I can't really see it very well because of the glare on my screen. Are you showing off the... That's not the Stowe circuit.
It is the Stowe circuit.
Oh, I think Kudos need to have a word with themselves because that is not right at all. It's not what it looks like whatsoever.
It's also very dark.
I was going to say, it might just be that it doesn't... It looks like a rallycross track there, which is really weird.
Wouldn't let me... It's not letting me detach my mouse.
Got a lot of technical difficulties. Yes, it was Zildzovic. He'll lead the way for the GT3 class. He'll lead the way for the GT3 AM class as well. Leighton Austin will lead the way for the GT3 Pros. Behind them, it's Jeroen Jongen and Ash Coupland, Aidan Chatburn and Alex Shahabi on the third row of the grid, Thibaut Gurtin and Dan Tomlinson on row 4, and then Johnny Seville and Sergei Folenko round out the top 10. And we've got Knowles, Hutchison, Wacker, Hunt, Jackson, Watson, are your classified GT3 drivers from the qualifying session. It's then Hearn who leads the way in the GT4 class with that ridiculous lap time. I think it's probably the best way to put that. Aidan Oak will line up alongside him. He will interestingly have the inside line going into Cop, so we'll see if Aidan can do anything off the start there. Jelinek will be alongside Ruotsalainen. In fact, they won't actually be alongside each other because Hearn will be alongside Watson. My apologies. Lindblom, Thorpe, Vest, Sherlock, and a selection of other names whom I've already forgotten. My apologies to you all because I can't see them on there. But yeah, going to be a good one. Minute to go. 90-minute race, double points on offer, of course. It's going to be a dark one, so like I say, we'll have to make sure all the lights are on. Put a bit more money in the meter trinket before we kick off, if you wouldn't mind, just to make sure we do get the lights out the whole session. That'd be good.
Now, I'm just looking at the lap records for GT4, and Daniel Hearn has the lap record in at least the drivers in the race with a 2:10.3, and then Ilpo not in the Camaro but in an AMG with a 2:10.6, and Jelinek with a 2:10.9. So yeah, that lap was mega even for him. It's a whole second faster than one of his previous bests.
Basically, what you're saying is seriously impressive. But shall we not feed his ego too much more? Seems like a sensible thing to do, because he's already mentioned it in the chat, and he's even gone with what a lap. Like, I feel like we maybe need to not feed the monster that is Dan Hearn. Hopefully, though, he can hold on to it, because, as I said before, we'll do a good job. We'll do a good bit of service towards his championship ambitions, I'm sure, in the GT4 class. Like I say, changed a lot since I was last here, but the double points has paid a lot of attributance to that as well. So there we go then. Alan Zildzovic leads us off for the formation lap, leads off and then decides to pretty much stop on there. So we've got one of the longer formation laps of the season, Trinket, which gives you and I a lot of time to talk about what we think is going to happen. First things first, I'm curious as to think who you wonder will go into the first corner in the lead. Will it be Zildzovic, will it be Austin, or will it be any one of those few following them up the top 5 or 6, I would say, of the grid? What would your initial suggestion be?
I believe Zildzovic will be starting on the inside, so part of me thinks that if Austin gets a good launch, he might be able to hug it around the outside and then get the inside into Maggots and Beckett's.
As long as we don't see shades of Silverstone in the Formula 1 a couple of years back, we don't see a coming together in one of them in the wall. Because looking at the pace between them, there was 300ths of a second between them in the qualifying session, my mind tells me. So if it's going to be as close as that in the race, then hopefully we're going to have a really, really spicy race coming up. Pit window, of course, as is always the case through this one. So the drivers will have to make one mandatory pit stop with 25 seconds worth of fuel to be added. Tyres completely optional. However, Trinket, I'm sure you'll agree on this one. When you've got a race of 90 minutes at a place like Silverstone, I would imagine the strategy for most of these guys is going to be cut it in half, change tyres, and just take the 5 seconds.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Sounds a bit like Churchill, the talking dog there.
But yeah, and I can imagine, especially with the Ferrari, that those tyres are going to start going about 45, 50 minutes in. So you're definitely going to be wanting to be swapping.
It's going to be important to make sure you're either managing them or like you say, just changing tyres. I'd be surprised if anyone tries to push the whole tyres, one set of tyres, sorry, for the whole race. Maybe GT4 could do it. I'm not entirely sure. It's not really my bag, so I wouldn't want to assume one way or another. But GT3 I know enough about and know there's absolutely no chance that's going to happen.
It's a lot more mechanical grip with the GT4, so there's a lot more wear on the tyres. But because it is more mechanical grip, there's a lot less downforce wash. So it's kind of a mix, but I think they do last a bit longer. It doesn't get as sketch, at least for some of the cars.
Yeah, whatever happens, just make sure you're here for the duration of it. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button on the stream and make sure you've hit the subscribe button as well, because although I'm not involved with them, which would be sad to hear, I'm sure, there is tons and tons of streams that go on a weekly basis. I mean, I say tons and tons. There's at least one pretty much every night, as far as I'm mistaken. And Trinket, I'm pretty sure you do most of them. I'm sure you're always around doing these things anyway. But make sure if you haven't done already, you've hit that subscribe button. Get the notifications ticked as well, so you can always see when we're going live, and you can hear lots of our many dulcet tones from myself, Trinket, and the rest of the team over at oNiD Racing. Because, like I said, I think there's some pretty good racing in this series, and I'm sure there is in all the other ones as well, of those I haven't had the chance to see.
Yeah, if I'm not streaming, I'm usually racing.
One or the other. Always got ACC open regardless of the circumstance. I love to see it. So here we go then. Coming through left field for the final time in this formation lap, Alan Zildzovic will lead the way off the grid with Leighton Austin alongside him. Who will get into Copse Corner first? We'll have to wait just a couple more seconds to find out. It does look like Zildzovic has got that slight advantage come off there. It doesn't always appear to be the case on these formation laps. I feel like ACC can really be a little bit fiddly when it comes to these. It can sometimes benefit the outside driver more than anyone else. But it looks like Zildzovic got a nice big gap at the start, waiting to go green any moment now. They've crossed the start-finish line, so it's just a case of waiting, and we're underway. Green light goes here at Silverstone, and we're underway. And Zildzovic looks like he's going to get the inside into Copse Corner. Looks like Jeroen Jongen's nearly managed to get the move up the inside of Austin going through the first corner as they come streaming down into Magnussen and Beckett's for the first time. Look at that sea of lights. You can see someone has not really got their full beam on, so it's going to be difficult to tell where they're going, I'd have thought, considering how dark it is. But as it stands, it's pretty much as you were. There's a Porsche spun round there. It's a purple Porsche. Didn't quite see who that was. And that is Rainer Ressar, one of those who didn't partake in qualifying due to that ban, and unfortunately has been impacted straight away. Takes a nudge from behind and gets spun and is back towards the back of the pack once more. At the top end of the field, though, Trinket looks like everyone got away cleanly, and that is exactly what Zildzovic would have wanted to do. He's got away. He's got a small gap of half a second to Leighton Austin, and I'm sure what he'll want to happen is that Jongen continues to battle the number 23 car, and it will give the 16 Ferrari a chance to make a little bit of breathing room.
There's a lot going on in the field right now. But very clean, very good start from the field.
Yeah, absolutely. The only incident we saw of note was that, that coming together with, I would assume it was Ressar on one of the GT4s, I would have thought, just based on the fact he didn't start in the GT3 class pack. Ollie Knowles has always got a move going at the inside from Hutchison. That's a bold move because they go into Village. Does get the move done though. Will Knowles look to the inside into the loop? He will. They're going to be alongside as they come for Aintree. He's going to try and push him out a little bit wide. It's going to be side by side through the fast right-hander, left-hander, sorry. Pushes him out onto the straight. Oh, a little bit of contact between the two of them. Is there going to be contact again? They're so close. You can see them practically rubbing door paint off of one another as they come into the breaking point of Brooklands. And it looks like Knowles is going to hold on to position. Is he going to go deep at all? Goes a little bit deep. Just about manages to hold on to it. Hutchinson's still there. He's going to try around the outside into Luffield. Wacker is all over the back of these guys as well, probably licking his lips thinking, where can I get the move done here? Hutchinson is all over the show. He is slipping and sliding around like a good, and almost like he's driving on oil at the start of this one. But Knowles manages to hold on to P11, and that has given Falenko a little bit of a chance to escape after he made that move going through club at the start or the middle part of that lap. Zildjić 2 seconds trinket ahead of Jongen in second place. Austin, though, down into 7th place. I wonder what's happened there.
Didn't quite see what happened to Austin, but I did see a lot of position changes up ahead, so looks like maybe just a bit of a wiggle. There was no yellow flags that I saw, so...
Yeah, very interesting indeed. Yeah, didn't see it yellow. Maybe just, a little bit of wiggle and lost a bit of speed as a result. So, unfortunately, can't appear to see what's happened there, which is a bit of a shame.
Especially on lap 1, you lose a bit of speed, you're just gobbled up by the whole field.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of them. You lose... Oh, there's Jan Wacker. He's lost some positions there. In fact, dropped back off. I think he's at the back of the GT... Oh, no, he's back of the GT4 class as well. Oh, no, sorry. He's just ahead of the GT4 class because that is... Dan Hearn battling with Rainer Ressar. I say battling, it's not going to be a very difficult battle for Ressar to do, obviously being in the higher class. Here's Alex Shahabi, Connects Motorsport car, teammate of Martin Thorpe, down in the GT4 class, of course. Looks at the inside of Aidan Chatburn. It's a Ferrari 1, 2, 3, 4. It nearly had a Mercedes in the mix as well. But Chatburn just about manages to hold onto the position. It's a very spicy opening couple of laps. The top 4 are separated with a decent bit of a gap between them at the moment. 2 seconds, 1 second, 2 seconds again. However, behind them, there is all sorts going on as there we go. Leighton Austin looks at the inside and gets the move done on Dan Tomlinson. Gets himself back up into 6th place. Johnny Seville in that Jag G3 sits just behind him. And that's Thibaut Gurton and Sergei Falenko behind them as well. You're absolutely right, Trinket. You lose a bit of time, a little bit of speed. There is all David Hutchinson has lost it coming out of, I think that's coming out of Luffield. That's the pit entry, isn't it? Looks like he's being sent with a rejoin, which is exactly what I want to see. But I was going to say, you're absolutely right. It's so difficult to, when the cars are that close together, if you do make a mistake, you're right, you lose sort of half a dozen positions.
During that, we also missed Jonathan Seville getting Tomlinson taking 7th place now.
Absolutely, all change in the outer realms of the top 10. Chatburn still holding off Shahabi for P4. Austin, like I say, up into P6. Seville in P7. Dan Tomlinson drops back down into P8 with Gurton and Falenko very, very close behind him. 1/10 of a second was the difference between Gurton and Falenko. Looks like it's just expanded ever so slightly as they come into club corner. As there you go, the pit window is now open. So same pit window as it was in the 60-minute races, for those of you who didn't catch it last week. So 5 minutes either side of the start and finish of the race. And like I say, I expect we're probably going to see everyone hold out for the next 40 minutes or so and try and get as close to halfway as possible. Seems the sensible move to do. Shahabi taking a little bit of curb there as he goes into Village. Again, exploiting or trying to force some exploits on the move on Aidan Chatburn. He's got to be careful of Leighton Austin. We know how quick Austin is, of course. P2 in qualifying, only 0.03 of a second off Zildjić, who's looking pretty at the top of the timing board. 2.7 seconds ahead of Jeroen Jongen as of the last split time. 1.1 seconds back to Ash Coupland, and then 3.6 back to Chatburn, who is the man at the front of this field. It's becoming a little bit of a Chatburn train, I say that, but there is a bit of a gap back to Seville. But from him down to Falenko, that's what, a 7-car train that we've got, and then we've got a couple of battle packs looking at it further back as well. Importantly though, looking back to the GT4's Trinket, Dan Hearn looks like he's still leading the way. He's got Peter Jelinek behind him, who of course is one of the top 3 of the championship. But importantly for Hearn, he's managed to capitalise on that good qualifying session and get himself a little bit of a gap at the front of the class as well after the first couple of laps.
Yeah, it's all starting to space out a little bit, but the field is still very, very close together. It's more than half the field all together right now. Leighton Austin side by side with Shahabi now. Looks like he's getting past, but nope. That's just the camera being funny.
I actually see, so much so I thought he'd gone up the inside, but he was clearly being pushed to the outside, which is sensible from Shahabi. Going to be very difficult unless you've got a proper tyre advantage, I would suggest, or at least a pace advantage to get around the outside at Stowe. So he's going to have to continue in 6th place for at least a few more corners. I expect he might be trying to get a good run down the Hamilton Straight through Abbey and Farm Curve, and then maybe see if he can get it done under braking into Village. But it doesn't really look like he's close enough. I would argue that Shahabi's the one who's going to potentially looking at making the move, but no. Elects to sit behind the Ferrari for one more, at least a couple more corners. Tell my Alexa thing to shut up. Don't know what it said. I can see it lit up, but I didn't hear what it said. Probably telling me someone's at the door. Anyway, so this is the battle for P3 in the GT4 class. Aidan Oak lost a position to Jelinek off the start, but is holding on to the back of him. That Alpine proving to be a pretty decent bit of machinery, in fairness, around this circuit. So Aidan, I'm sure, will be very happy. You can see Elvin Blunkvist in the pits in the GT4 class. It looks like he's the only one. In fact, there's at least one or two, I think, to have pitted so far. Interesting, because like I said, I don't think he's going to want to pit that early. I feel like that's going to mean you're going to need to do another pit stop or
He's
massively manage your tyres.
He's been stopped for 1 minute and 10 seconds now.
Presumably fixing some sort of damage then in that case. Either that or just can't really be bothered to get moving again. Either or. So you come into Brooklands. Oak still on the back of the McLaren of Jelinek. As we see, Leighton Austin during that time has managed to get himself past Shahabi and into it says P4, so we'll see if that updates in a second. Jan Wacker on another off-track excursion once more. Second time in this race, at least, that we've seen so far. And there is Carolus Jurgelis getting past Sean Hunt, is he? Sean gets a little bit out of shape going through Stowe. But it looks like, yeah, Jurgelis a little bit wiggly under braking. Cuts the line quite aggressively, you would say. And comments in the chat from Matt Holman, big damage apparently. Which I'm presuming is referring to Blunkvist in the pits at the moment.
I'll update when they have left the pit and see how long they were. Oh no, they're out now. Yeah, they were stopped for 1 minute 8 seconds.
Wow,
so
yeah.
As I read it and rounded it up, that's when they drove out.
Excellent. You love to see it. So Austin up into P5 once more. So he dropped from P2, of course. Now back up into P5. He's nice and close behind Aidan Chapman. Shahabi, I'm sure, will want to try and hang on to the back of Austin and see if he can get back up to the rear wing of Aidan Chapman like he was a couple of laps ago. John Seville not managing to make any major inroads on the back of Shahabi at the moment. We've got Dan Tomlinson and Thibaut Gurton for close company behind as well. And then there's a slightly, and I mean slightly larger gap. In fact, it's now just decreased back to Sergei Filenko and Oliver Knowles in P11, and then we've got a slightly larger gap of 3 seconds back to Carolus Jurgelis, who's currently sitting in P12. And yes, Matt Holman confirms it is Blunkvist that he is referring to. So I'm glad I got that right. Either that, or someone's driving around with a very wonky car, and is deciding they don't really fancy pitting, which would be an interesting decision to make. This is the battle for P3 again. Peter Jelinek under a bit more pressure this time as they come to Brooklands. Aidan Oak manages to get alongside. And sadly for him, he's going to be going on the outside of Luffield, so he's probably not going to get the move done, but he might get a better exit than Jelinek. He does get alongside. Oh, he's going to be on a little bit on the gravel there. That's going to impact his speed coming out of that corner and just has to tuck in behind Jelinek in the end in that 570S in the oNiD Racing Stronger 151 machine. Is he going to look for the inside up into Cops? No, again, elects to fight another day. All this is doing is just giving Dan Hearn a massive gap. He's got a 5.5 second gap as they cross the line on that last lap. He is just going to be there sitting, very much enjoying himself and thinking, I could do this all day, and hopefully I'm sure he's thinking he'll have a nice, calm and collected 80 minutes remaining in this race, because he can just collect some points, get a good position in the championship going into the final round. Of course, with Carlos Plaza not in the session and Martin Thorpe a little bit further down in the standings, that is going to throw him right into the mix ahead of the final round next week.
Yeah, Danny Hearn has shown up himself up in the top quite a lot. He's unfortunately had a lot of times, lots of incidents, spins, other stuff that's put him down the field. So hopefully this time around he can hold on to that lead. He's certainly got enough lead now. See if he can hold on to it and get his. I think it might be his first win of this season if he can.
I think you're right. I'm going to check that while we're watching, just see if I can confirm nor deny that. It doesn't tell me. In fact, no, it won't tell me because he's not. It'll only tell me the wins across the entire class. I can't see that, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame. What was I going to say? Yeah, question to you then, with that in mind. You're Dan Hearn in that position. Are you preferring to have that big gap? Are you the kind of one of those people that can kind of be quite metronomic, just fall into a bit of a zone, and even if no one's around you, just kind of keep hitting those marks? Or do you prefer having someone like within, not necessarily right behind you, but within touching distance, just to kind of keep you focused for the rest of that race?
I think if I'm trying to go for a win, I want to get as far away as possible, so that if I do make a mistake, I have a nice buffer to work with. Plus, soon enough, they're going to have to start dealing with GT3 traffic coming through, because it's a 90-minute race. We're only just got about close to 15 minutes in. The GT3s are going to start working their way through the field, and then it's going to be an even spread of traffic a lot, and you can lose a lot of time or gain a lot of time if traffic is on your side.
Yeah, exactly. That is going to be interesting. Of course, the same for the GT3s as well. They've got to make sure they circumnavigate that traffic as best as they possibly can. So, room for difficulty, room for action, incidents, time to be gained and lost all over the show. So, interesting to see how they get on. Now, Aidan Oak has managed to get past and appears to have retained the position of Peter Jelinek. So he is now up into second in class, so back up to that second place he was in qualifying. Whether he can start to make any sort of inroads into that gap towards the gap of 7.5 seconds up to Dan Hearn will remain to be seen. He's still got a lot of work to do, and it's good to see we've got such a hefty GT4 class as well on display. Battle packs slightly fewer and far between in the GT4s, but still enough to keep us going, especially between these two who've been putting on rather a good show in the first 15 minutes of this one. I was about to say quarter of this race, but not a quarter of this race, because we've got that extra half an hour. I don't know what a quarter of 90 is. 45, 22 and a half. I do know what a quarter of 90 is.
Oh, Aidan Oak is off there. Manages to keep it going straight, but that's going to lose him a lot of time. Jelinek diving on the inside with that extra speed.
I was going to say, yeah, uses the speed differential, dives up the inside. Oak will be a little bit frustrated with that, I'm sure. It was probably one of those that could have been avoided. Oh, he gets really close at the edge of the loop. He actually looked like he had a really good run out of the corner there. He looked like he kind of almost perfected the cutback, but in the end, essentially yeeted that sausage curve, didn't he? Which kind of offset all of that momentum he might have potentially gained. So work for Aidan Oak to do once more, setting back into P3 in the GT4 class. Dan Hearn, as he mentioned before, decent enough gap ahead at the front of this one. Daniel Lindblom is on the back of Martin Thorpe in the Fry Guys Maserati. Of course, Dan was one of those who was trying to get a lap time in at the end of qualifying, but missed out on it by probably half a second, if that. So he's trying to make his way back up the field. Sure, he's expecting to go back out and try and do something in terms of improving that lap time, but instead it's going to be fighting with your current GT4 championship leader in that of Martin Thorpe just ahead. And they are, in fairness, they're not a huge amount behind the battle for P2 as well. So Oak has got 1.5 seconds back to Ruud Solanen, and then you've got Martin Thorpe further second and a half behind as well. As we see, Luke Sherlock enters the pit lane in the GT4 class. Chatburn has now lost the position, as you can see here, to Leighton Austin in the GT3 class. So he is now down into P5 as it stands. And I can just about see, Trinket, there is some GT4 traffic ahead. I think that's Tyler Verdinlia just ahead of them. This is where it starts to get interesting.
Oh, just we got a drive-through for track limits.
Oh, dearie me. Oh, number 6. That must be GT4. Oh dear, Albert Blomqvist, damage at the start and now a drive-through penalty. That is not what you want your race to turn out to if you're him. Still a long way to go, but a drive-through penalty will have a big impact on the ultimate outcome of his race. And this is Jack Watson trying to regain the position, I should say, off of Neil Manders, who's just managed to get through in the 113 car. Of course, Neil was one of those who actually started from the back of the grid. Of course, had that qualifying ban, so didn't partake in the half-an-hour session at the start of this one.
I lost my train of thought there from the drive-through. Just had a yellow flag for Coupland. Looks like must have gone off track momentarily, passing Vidinli. I think I was mentioning here because oh yeah, Vidinli is not too far off the back of other people. Habibovic just got a yellow flag. Some damage on that car now as well.
Ooh, yeah, that's a wonky-looking DuPont livery for Badim Habibovic. Is this going to be a replay?
It was still wonky.
I was going to say, it's already wonky at that point. You can tell he's not going very fast. I mean, in a GT4, but not going too quickly through there. Not looking too clever, that front bonnet. Hopefully,
there was a yellow flag, so that's what that was.
That's Jürgelis, I think, in the Porsche. I mean, both of them did a fantastic job of actually holding on to their cars and saving from any further spins, which is quite impressive in itself. We'll see whether Habibovic decides to serve that penalty. Sorry, I've seen the drive-through cleared on there and it's thrown me off. Whether he'll decide to pit now and repair that damage, whether he'll carry on and see how he gets on. Blomqvist, though, as I was about to say, has now served that drive-through penalty. You see now Chatburn hanging on to the back of Leighton Austin. Shahabi hanging on to the back of them as well. Johnny Seville has dropped back by the tune of about 3.5 seconds, with Dan Tomlinson still pretty close behind. And yeah, you're right, Trinket, just seeing the gap between Jeroen Jongen and Ash Coupland. They were about a second apart a few moments ago. So Ash must have had a pretty serious excursion to lose 7 seconds in the space of a lap. Look at this little back.
And Jongen is only 2 seconds behind Zildzovic. That gap was a lot bigger between first and second earlier.
Definitely starting to close up. So Jongen starting to find a little bit more pace. It's an Audi. It's an Audi. What I'm talking about. It's a Ferrari 1.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I should say. Just say top 5. Goodness me. It's a Ferrari top 5, which shows you that the 296 might well be the meta at this moment in time. You would argue, especially around the Silverstone circuit. Shahabi, the first of the non-Ferrari cars in that Mercedes GT3 Evo, sitting in P6, and still trying to put a bit of pressure on Chatburn. Chatburn's lost a little bit of time back to Leighton Austin, who's now right around the back of Ash Coupland ahead. So Chatburn now going to be looking in his rearview mirrors rather than trying to look forward at Austin in front. We've got a little bit of work to do. Has the number 18 Ferrari. Leighton Austin's recovery drive continues. 2 positions off that ultimate starting place at the moment. Very close still back to the back of Ash Coupland, who is now started to close back up on Jongen, because I'm assuming Jongen's gone off somewhere because he's now lost time to Zildzovic. All going on, Trinket, all going on. Trying to keep an eye on the timing tower and figure out where people are and where people are moving to. There's lots to keep a track of. I do not envy you at this moment in time.
I like doing this. It's lots of fun just seeing all the numbers.
It's like being in the Matrix.
The traffic there has slowed down Coupland a bit, and now they're going side by side as the 2 Pulse cars.
Yeah, there you go, going down at the hangar straight. Leighton Austin still behind as it stands, but now gets the move done up into P3. And will now focus his attention firstly to getting through the GT4s ahead of him on track. That next one ahead of him is Ruotsalainen. He's in, P4 on there. He's got a little bit of a gap to Aidan Oaks, so there's a little bit of a chance for Leighton Austin to not get stuck in too much traffic there. But he'll now turn his attention to regaining P2 and getting back up close and personal with Jeroen Jongen. And then potentially, if he's got the pace, see if he can get up to Alan Zildzovic as well, who's ultimately not really capitalised on that gap he had at the start, has he? He's had a pretty decent gap at the start of the race. It seems to be kind of stagnating at the 2.5 second mark, so he's not really managing to put too much extra time on the board in that first place position.
It's gaining quite a lot of time, went down to about 1.5 seconds. I was watching the live timing and it dropped to about 1.1, 1.2 seconds, but now it's steadily increased to 2 seconds, and it's just kind of stuck around there now. Seems to me like some traffic just kind of like equalizing everyone's pace.
Yeah, absolutely. The traffic will have that impact, of course. You'll gain time, you'll lose time. It's all around, all really just about keeping kind of calm in these situations. The last thing you want to do is allow that frustration to seep in, because the way I always look at it, and I always say to people, if I'm in that position driving that car, you just have to think about the fact that if someone's ahead of you, you're going to gain time to them. You're going to lose time when you overtake the slower class car, or you're overtaken by the faster class car. If you're the one behind, if you're in front, you know they're going to catch you, but you also know they're going to lose a bit of time when they eventually come past there. As well as all what's happened here, Nick Manders caught up between a couple of GT4s. I can't quite see which ones they are. I'm assuming that is Raceroom, and they're in the 61 car. Oh, just taps the back end, and then the Mercedes GT4 nudges into the back of the Chevy, who then nudges into the back of Nick Manders. So not the couple of corners that Manders would have wanted. Loses pretty much all of that time. He's lost about 10 seconds in the end, I think, from being spun there, and of course a bit of damage as well. Aidan Chatburn is going to be losing 5th position, it looks like, or is it, in fact, he's going to be regaining 5th position, I should say, because he's managed to do a fantastic move on Alex Shahabi there. This is going to be music to the top 4's ears. That gap between 4th and 5th starting to increase once more, as we see, is Chatburn going to look to the, or is going to hold on to the outside he is. Shahabi,
it's music to Seville's ears as well, because he's caught.
I was going to say, yeah,
now.
he is right on the back of them. You're absolutely right. As they come into Village, Seville right on the back of these guys now in that Jag. We know that Jag can have, it's got a decent amount of pace in a straight line, and there's I think that's a GT4 ahead of them as well. Can't quite catch who that is. I think that's Yellowneck, from what I can see, who's actually lost again once more the position back to Aidan Oak. So change again in the GT4 class. It's not him, that is Luke Sherlock. My apologies, I can see that is not a McLaren, that is clearly a Mercedes GT4. But yeah, Johnny Seville, he was he was about 3 seconds behind a moment ago, as he gets a little bit squirrely coming out of left field.
You can tell he's not running traction control. That's something Jonathan Seville does. There's some people who drive the Maserati because it doesn't have traction control or ABS, but Jonathan Seville just doesn't drive with traction control sometimes.
No, I actually messaged him a couple of weeks ago, and he did. I said to him, like, I can't believe you're driving the Jag. That is like mad. How are you finding any pace in it? And he actually said to me as well, oh, I've actually found it's quicker with the TC turned off. So, I mean, that's just classic electronics for you in a car like a Jag, isn't it? Just not ideal. Oh, look at that move. That was like, who was it, Hacken and Schumacher-esque from Spa 99, I want to say. Coming down the hanger straight. Is he going to try and hang it around the outside at Stowe? Shahabi's not going to make this easy for him. No, Seville has to yield and choose to fight his battles on that one as they come into the braking zone at Vale. Is he going to make them this time? No, just again sits behind Shahabi, putting his car pretty much where he needs to avoid losing that position. Tomlinson loses a position to Jurgelis. That's a change in for the final position in the top 10. And they've got Sergei Folenko just ahead of them in the 696 Sky Tempesta McLaren. You can see them there as we see a drive-through penalty for car number 61. Find out who that is in just a second. Oh, Jurgelis gets that move. Oh, in fact, holds on to the position, rather, I should say, of P10. So it continues to stay ahead of Dan Tomlinson in the Haribo Esports car. That's Folenko just ahead of them. But is Tomlinson going to try and make a move here? He's going to try and cut back as he through the loop. Try and get a better exit out through Aintree and onto the Wellington Straight. But looks like that is the move in the books. That is signed, sealed, delivered, stamped, whatever you want to call it, from Jurgelis. Gets himself up into the top 10, which is seriously impressive, Trinket, considering he started at the back of the grid.
Oh, yes. And just an update on the drive-through, it was Vidoni.
Lorenzo Vidoni. That's Vidoni. That was the one who got caught up in the incident with Nick Manders then. To recognise the 61. Apologies to who I thought it might have been. The Chevys, mixed fortunes, I would say. We've got 3 of the bottom 5 are Chevys, and you've got Ruotsalainen, who's currently sitting, P4 in the class at the moment. So mixed fortunes for the American muscle brand.
It's quite the beast to tame. As I've mentioned previously, I did a season in it. It can be quite good on some tracks and not so good on some others, but everywhere it likes to understeer. It channels the boat mentality.
I was going to say
perfectly.
that's American muscle for you. You gotta love it. As I think as I'm going past Dan Hearn there, Jan Wacker goes into the pit lane for presumably his scheduled stop, which is, again, I feel a little bit early, but maybe the opening point of when you could theoretically pit and have a set of tyres last for, I reckon about an hour is probably the limit you want to put them to, knowing that you can change them at any point. And there is, that's confirmation that Vidoni still needs to serve that drive-through, so 2 laps remaining to get that one sorted. As it stands, though, just coming up to the third way mark of this race, Zildzovic still leading the way. He's now got a gap of 4.2 seconds back to Jeroen Jongen, who's managing the gap back to Leighton Austin. That's still sitting around 7 seconds. Coupland sits in 4th, with Chatburn a further 7 seconds back in 5th place. And then he's got Shahabi and Seville, who have just kind of drifted away from each other a little bit there. Gurton, Falenko and Jürglich are top 10. Here is Rainer Ressar, P14 at the moment. He is trying to cut down the gap between him and Sean Hunt in that McLaren, just ahead of him in your picture. 7/10 is the gap, although I'd argue the live time, that's probably more about 4, looking at that. So that Porsche looks to have the pace on the McLaren, and we'll see whether he can get that move done over the next couple of laps. Here is Jürglich, back end of the top 10. He dispatched Dan Tomlinson a lap or 2 ago. Now we'll see if he can do the same on that Sky Tempesta machine of Sergei Falenko, as Ressar will not be getting the move done on Sean Hunt because he is elected to serve his mandatory pit stop, from what we can see on the timing tower on the left. For those of you who've never seen it before, if you've got a little orange 1 next to your number, that means you've got a pit stop to serve. If you've got a nice big green block like Jan Wacker does in P18, that means you've served your mandatory pit stop. So we need to make sure everyone does them before the pit window closes. Otherwise, Trinket will have some naughty boys club, and then they'll be getting some stop-go penalties at the end of the race, which nobody wants. Nobody wants the penalty because you didn't serve your pit stop in time.
I don't think it's a stop-go penalty. I think it's just an added time at the end of the race.
Yeah, sorry,
I think it's something like 100 and something seconds. It's quite a lot. Definitely more than serving your pit, that's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's about 130 feels like the gap that they've got stuck in my head for some reason. As we see, Jürglich tries up the inside and farm curve, goes through the inside outside of village.
We've got 2 changes for positions right now. We've also got Peter Jelinek getting back on Aiden Oak.
Yeah, there you go. Stop go 30 for Rainer Ressar. That is going to be heartbreaking for him. He's done a lot of work to try and get himself back up the pack after starting from the back of the grid, after serving that qualifying ban. Stop go 30 will completely ruin his race from here. And yeah, you're right. See, this is the move from Jürglich. In fact, this is, the move from Aiden Oak on Peter Jelinek. The other way around, rather, I should say. And Jelinek just gets around the outside at Club Corner. Holds it there. He's going to keep a nice tight inside line you would expect coming onto the Hamilton Straight, which he does. Gets the move, stamped, sealed, signed, whatever you want to call it. Gets himself back up into P2. Good little battle between these 2 triggers, isn't it? Because they keep changing, chopping and changing, which means that we've got something to keep referring back to, which is never a bad thing for us to see on the stream.
A little bit in my throat there. Lots of fun going on, because quite often through the past few weeks we've had a bit of a quiet time in the GT4 field. They just kind of spread out and then not much action happens. Some fights happen every now and then, but we've got 2 fights going on right now. We've also got Martin Thorpe close to Ilpo Rutsalainen. So there's plenty going on.
For sure, as we see Chatburn pits from the G3 class. Lorenzo Vidoni, I would assume, will appear in the pit lane in just a moment, because I'm pretty sure this is the last lap they've got to serve that drive-through penalty. Yeah, you see just coming through Aintree at the moment, so presumably we'll see them escape into pit lane in a couple of moments' time. He's got one of the Ferraris. I think that is Zildzovic behind him.
That's Jongen just passing through.
It's Jongen, sorry, yeah. was going to say, as I saw it behind the lights, I saw the orange of the Dutch car, the Dutch branded car. I thought, oh, I know who that is now. It's our resident Dutchman. I feel like every series has a resident Dutchman in it, or at least one anyway.
There's lots of Dutchies.
Yeah, exactly. They're big in the community. It's great. It's nice to see. I wonder if any of them were at the Formula One this afternoon and have got back in time to race anywhere this evening. Here is Dan Tomlinson up into P10 now, courtesy of Aidan Chatburn serving his pit stop. So we're starting to get to that pit stop phase. Some people going for that undercut, maybe trying to get some fresh timing, get a bit of clear track, and try and put some good lap times on the board. As we say good evening to Mr. Ben Brown in the chat. He says hello, gang. In case for those of you who can't see, a drive-through cleared there for Lorenzo Vidoni, and Rainer Ressar currently serving his stop-go 30 penalty. As here we go, the battle for P2 and GT4 continues. We regain this one as Aidan Oak tries to get the inside through Aintree. He's not going to get that one done, but he is going to just about be alongside as he going into Brooklands. He's going to have to be late on the brakes to hold this one. Jelinek gives him some room. They are super duper close, but no contact between the two of them. Fantastic racecraft from the both of them. That is the number 18 of Chatburn. Just looking at the inside of Luffield on Oak. That's going to have an impact on his exit of the final couple of corners.
Yeah, I think he was trying to go for a switchback, kind of like a cutback, try and get the inside line into the last corner. But I think that the GT3 just snuck in there and prevented him from doing that. But the fight is still on. They're still on the back of each other, and it's going to keep going for a while, I think, this one.
Absolutely. It's one of those where you kind of hope they pit at the same time as well, don't you? Because then you can see them carry that battle on for the remainder of the race. Hopefully that will be the case.
Coupland has taken a position from
I was going to say, yeah. Seems a bit of a change there. Can't see his last lap time was a 1:59.0, I think I saw. So that's not going to have any impact there. We'll see if the time comes up on this one. I assume it's happened on this lap in that case, or at least a lap or so before.
Okay. Just happened.
Just happened, yes. We'll see how much time he did actually use.
So
lose rather. Yeah. So he's only lost a couple of seconds. I think they were quite close anyway, weren't they? So maybe just kind of lost the back end, maybe going through farm, village, that sort of area.
Thank you, Fredelia and Zandra, for subscribing to the oNiD Racing YouTube channel.
Hey.
Hello.
You love to see it. Lovely, lovely stuff. Welcome along. Quick race recap for those of you who may have just joined. Alan Zilzovic still leading the way from pole position. He has got a 5-second gap back to Jeroen Jongen, who managed to get past Leighton Austin after he had an incident-filled first couple of laps, lost a handful of positions, but working his way back up. He is behind Ash Coupland, who are in 3rd and 4th respectively. Alex Shahabi and Johnny Seville are 5th and 6th at the moment, but the gap between those has started to grow a little bit more. Thibaut Gurton is in P7. Carolus Jurgelis is in P8. He's started from the back of the grid, so good display from him to get up to there already. Dan Tomlinson in P9, Sergei Falenko in P10. And in the GT4 class, it's Dan Hearn leading the way by 17 seconds to Peter Jelinek in P2. And Aidan Oak is very much on the trail of him. We've seen them change positions a number of times already. And Ilpo Ruotsalainen is just on the back of them as well. So expect that might form a three-way battle for that second position in the GT4 class as well. But with 54.5 minutes still to run, still plenty of action. And to be fair, Trickett, we've been blessed with a lot of action so far, which is never a bad thing. Hopefully the rest of the remaining race will continue to be as packed as we have had already.
I'm certainly hoping so.
I'm hoping we can keep you very busy. Keep your octopus arms continuing to keep across all the action that we have on display. Here is Jurgelis. Is he looking at the inside of the curtain? He is not. He's going to choose to wait on that one. Probably a smart move. I would argue that it's not the easiest move to get done through Brooklands, especially if you try and get the inside. You have to get that move done really before you get to the breaking point at Luffield. Otherwise, you're just going to get pushed to the outside and you're just going to lose more time. So, sensible from him. Those three in the GT3 class who have served their pit stop so far are Chatburn, Wacker and Ressar. Only a couple in the GT4 class, I believe, who've served theirs as well. So, still time for these pit stops we made, as we said before, expect them. They're probably going to split this race in half, you would argue. So we expect to see a lot more pit stops in the next sort of 10 minutes or so of this one.
Yeah, I'll certainly be expecting a lot at 45 minutes.
Yes, a flurry, if you will, of pit stops to happen on the 45-minute mark. It'd be stupid not to, personally. I think knowing that you're not going to get the lap time, the tyres at Silverstone to do a 90-minute stint without them really, really screaming at you at the end, it seems sensible to just split the race in half, get the tyres changed, add an extra 5 seconds onto your fuel time anyway, because you have to stop for 25 seconds of the fuel. Might as well change your tyres, get a fresh set of boots on, and then carry on for the second part of the race. As we see Dan Hearn pits from the lead of the GT4 class, and we go on board with Carolus Jürgelis on the dashboard, no less, of the Pole Simsport 420 Porsche. Is he going to look at the inside of Girton into Village? He is last of the late breakers. Great move there. In fact, no, he's not got the move done just yet. Girton's going to hold the inside going into the loop, and Carolus Jürgelis isn't going to be able to get the cut back. It doesn't look like, but he's got a really good run as they come for entry onto the Wellington Straight. He's going to look to the left-hand side as they come down the back straight down towards the breaking point of Brooklands. Last of the late breakers into the left-hand trail, breaking all the way through, and there you go. It does look like Jürgelis has got that move done. Unless Girton can get anything back, he's going to look for a cutback as he going through Luffield, try and get a better exit. However, looks to me there like, yeah, Jürgelis got far too much speed on that Ferrari, promotes himself up into P7 and continues his rise up the standings towards the middle part of this race. And a good evening to Mourinho87 in the chat as well. Lovely to have you, sir. Jan Wacker, I'm sure I've seen exactly this before. Are you showing me a replay trinket, or has he just made the same, or he done the same excursion as he did about 20 minutes ago?
I think I've seen a few more yellow flags from them as well. I've just not clicked on it. Not a strong race or a good race from them today. Must be a cursed track to them. I know I have my few tracks I just do terribly at.
I've got a number of them. There's probably more that I've got cursed than more than I'm good at, to be completely fair. Aidan Oak is still fighting with Peter Jelinek, and Ruotsalainen is still within 2 seconds of them. This battle for P2 realistically could include Martin Thorpe as well, given the fact that we might see some slower pit stops with people having to maybe get the markers right, especially in the dark as well. Just adds that extra element of difficulty to the mix. But Aidan Oak still trying to get back into P2. Of course, started the race P2 in class in the GT4s, has lost that to Jelinek, and they've been battling pretty much ever since. Here's the battle for P9. That is Felenko, followed by Tomlinson, followed by Knowles. So it's McLaren, Porsche. As we see David Hutchison now in the pit lane. So he's going to be the fourth of the GT3 cars to serve their pit stop. And going back to what you said, Trinket, about Jan Wacker, that the only reason they're second from last in the GT3 class as it stands is obviously because of that stop go 30 penalty that Reina Ressar was awarded for speeding in the pit lane about 10 minutes ago. Johnny Seville enters the pit lane, as does Ilpo Ruotsalainen, as these guys go round the outside of Blomqvist. I think that is P31, last of the running cars as it stands. And this is the prime example of what I love about multi-class racing. You can go from having no one really kind of near each other, but then you stick a random slower class or faster class car in the mix of it, and everyone just comes together, don't they? It really kind of ebbs and flows nicely, I feel.
Lots of action, lots of exciting stuff to do, and there's never a quiet moment once everything's underway.
You are absolutely right. Sean Hunt in the pit lane now as well. He pits from P12. Here is Aidan Oak again, once more trying as hard as he can to get that move done on Peter Jelinek and get himself back up into the P2. He starts this racing, goes at the inside. That's a lovely move if he can make it stick through the through the loop. Gets the move done. Alpine not the quickest in a straight line. The McLaren, one of the fast GT4 cars, if I'm not mistaken, on when it comes to top end speed. look as the Jelinek goes to the right hand side or left hand side as we look at it outside into Brooklands. Aidan Oak is presumably going to try and hang it out and maybe just kind of push the issue a little bit, push him wide. He is indeed, and as a result, at the moment at least, I'm sure this will change again in the next couple of minutes. Aidan Oak back up, well, into first position in class, a net P2, you would argue, given Dan Hearn's rather sizable lead ahead of these guys on track. That is later as Ash Coupland, my apologies, who's just coming past these guys in the 463 Ferrari GT3. But yeah, Aidan Oak again getting himself back up into, or back up in front of Peter Jelinek. This is back to the battle for P8. Sergei Folenko of P8 now, I should say, as Leighton Austin pits from P4. That'll promote most of these guys up a position as well. Dan Tomlinson still in the middle of Folenko in front and Knowles behind. Nick Manders half a minute behind those guys, so a nice big gap for these guys to really kind of throw down and have a bit of a go at each other and see if any of them can get any benefit out of it. At the moment it's P7. That doesn't feel right to me.
P6
I feel
now.
like P6 now, goodness me.
For Folenko, that is.
Oh, of course, yeah, of course. I'm just seeing it because there's been a few people pitting and serving pit stops as well, isn't there? So that is why, just where the classic ACC timing tower, where it takes a full sector for it to update properly, which is always it's definitely not a bugbear of mine, as you can probably tell.
It's very enjoyable, especially at the start of the race when everyone goes from first to last.
Yeah, I've never understood that. Never ever understood
But
it. You'd look. Go on.
I was just saying, it's just the same two fights going on now. There's three-way for, well, whatever position it keeps changing because everyone's pitting, and Oak and Jelinek still at it. But going back, I think Tomlinson's getting even closer to Folenko now. A bit of traffic.
He's using the... Oh yeah, Habibovic at the worst possible time. Does he see? Was he going to look up the inside? No, he's not. I thought Tomlinson was going to try and look up the inside of Folenko as they went into Abbey there, but doesn't choose to do it. Fights another day. Yeah, that Chevy of Habibovic for Folenko there was really unlucky, or unfortunately timed. I was going to say poorly timed. I don't think he did it on purpose, but unfortunate timing for him. So Leighton Austin comes back out in P10. He's got around about 9 seconds to Chatburn behind, who's the next of the running cars to actually serve their pit stop. There's then another 8 seconds back to Johnny Seville. And then the rest of the running cars have served their pit stops. Jelinek and Thorpe both enter pit lane in the GT4 class. Ruotsalainen has served his pit stop, so he's going to be interested to see where he comes out. And as we see there, oh, that is unfortunate. That's the last thing you want for Dan Tomlinson. Trinky, he's gone into the pit lane directly behind a GT4, which is not what you want.
Yeah, it slows you up a fair bit.
Yeah, exactly. Now, interestingly, I'm looking at the gap between Ruotsalainen and Dan Hearn. It's about 20 seconds. So it looks like that gap may have just dropped a small amount. As we see, Johnny Seville is going to look at the inside of Hunt there. In fact, that's not looking at the inside of Hunt at all. That is Watson, sorry. Again, the timing tower confusing me completely. And that is Seville up and past Jack Watson, who, of course, is yet to pit. So no real surprise that Seville makes that move and gets that in the books. You see Martin Thorpe and Jelinek both out of the pit lane. We'll see where they come out in relation to Dan Hearn in just a second.
Ruotsalainen did manage to get ahead of him.
Oh, did he? Okay. Interesting. So the undercut working really well for Ilpo Ruotsalainen then. So he's got himself up into P2 in class potentially. Just wait for the sector times to settle themselves out. We'll get a confirmation in just a sec. Of course, it's still Dan Hearn who, of course, will ultimately be leading the class. And there you go. Yeah, so Jelinek comes out in P3 net in class at the moment. Still got Aidan Oak to serve his pit stop. Now, if I'm Aidan Oak in this position, I'm pitting very quickly, because if I can see that, which I probably can, I'm thinking, right, the undercut is clearly quite strong. Jelinek's going to want to try and do that to me to get a bit of time off him. If I'm Aidan Oak, I'm pitting this lap, personally.
It's all down to what they're thinking, what they're planning. Because you can definitely still go another 10-20 minutes. Always the top three all into the pits. Nope, that's not the top three. That's just the top three of this list. But that's Shahabi, Coupland and Jurglis.
And Oak now in the pits as well. So yeah, does elect to pit the lap after, as does Daniel Lindblom as well. But yeah, she said, yeah, Cooper, Shahabi, Jurgelis all pitting. This will be the point as we see where Leighton Austin comes out in respect to those guys, and where Shahabi comes out in relation to Chatburn, and just where Jurgelis comes out in relation to where he started on the grid as well. So 3 people to keep a lookout for. Coupland served his pit stop. He's just exiting pit lane now, which you can tell because he's got the green bit next to him. He's obviously lost the position to Girton. I don't know if he'll lose the position. He probably will actually. No, he will lose the position to Falenko. Looking at the gap between Austin and Falenko. So it's just a case of seeing where he comes out in relation to his Pulse SimSport teammate.
It's a few close positions of people coming out of the pits now, because I can see it with the live timing.
Ollie Knowles and Dan Tomlinson still very close together, as you saw there. And this is Chatburn very much on the back of, I think that's Shahabi in front, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Again, we'll find out. We'll get that clarity once they go through the timing board, but I'm sure that is Shahabi's connected to Motorsport Mercedes, which it is. Yeah, 0.2 of a second between those two. Austin comes out a second ahead of Ash Coupland, so that's another reverse for position as well. Not the worst reverse of position because, of course, being teammates doesn't massively make a difference. If they need to switch them, I'm sure they will. But being in different classes has less of an impact, of course, on the standings. Also, here's Jack Watson. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, there was just fighting for position while out of the pit strategy, but I was just switching over to Aiden Oak because Aiden Oak is 3 seconds behind Jelinek now.
Yeah, see, there you go. That's proof in the pudding of how strong that undercut can be, and Martin thought very much on the back of Oak now as well. So Oak is still fighting, but not with the car he was fighting with a moment ago. He's actually lost, as it stands, a podium finish in the GT4 class. So he's got a little bit of work to do in the final 40 minutes of this one to see if he can get that podium position back within his reach, as Sergei Falenko now enters the pit lane from P4. Top 3 of Zildzovic, Jongen and Girton still yet to pit. Nick Manders yet to pit. Jack Watson yet to pit in the GT3 class. And I think everyone in the GT4 class has now pit, if I'm not mistaken.
Just have a quick check. Yes, all GT4s have pitted, so it's just those few you mentioned.
Yeah, so 6 drivers, well, call it 5 drivers yet to pit. Shahabi all over the back of Nick Manders. He's going to want to make this move quickly if he can. Obviously, Nick being out of sync by not having served their pit stop yet. But Chatburn very much on the case. Fortunately for Shahabi, though, Trinket, again, we're assuming these guys are pitting for tyres as well. If they are, Shahabi's going to have a much fresher set of tyres than Chatburn is. So hopefully, if he can just hold on to the position, he can start to eke out a bit of a margin in the next sort of 5-10 minutes as those tyres get back up to working temperature.
Yeah, it's just all about trying to get Neek out of the way, either by getting through or Neek finally taking his pit stop. But as Shahabi, I imagine he's a bit stressed about it.
100%. Zildzovic and Jongen pit on the same lap, and this is Shahabi. Is he going to look up the inside? A little bit late on the brakes, gets the move done. Nick Manders does not want this. That's going to impact his race quite negatively as well. And importantly for Shahabi, gets the move done, and Chatburn has been massively impacted with Nick Manders still alongside him. Oh, bit of contact there, and Manders just exits stage right.
They had like quite a few little bonks together through that corner, and then it just it terminated in an even bigger one.
Yeah, we'll see it here as they come down into Club Corner. It looks like quite a late and I wouldn't say it's an aggressive move, but Shahabi kind of dangles the car on the inside there. And then, yeah, you can see Manders on the inside, Chatburn on the outside. They're going to go through onto the Hamilton Straight side by side. One bit of contact. Oh, just one big nudge. Didn't see if there's any contact going through the left hand, through the right hander, but that big bit of contact, I imagine, will force the hand of Nick Manders and just get him to pit now. You would think, as stop go 30 for Jeroen Jongen. That is a podium position all but gone for him. He was having such a strong race in P2 as it stands. However, he will now drop right the way back down. That will promote Leighton Austin and Ash Coupland up into the top 3 of this race. Thibaut Girton will get at least 1 lap of leading this race, as he is the final driver in the race yet to serve his pit stop. Oh, sorry, actually, no, he's not at all, because Nick Manders and Jack Watson still need to pit as well.
There's certainly a lot going on. Martin Thorpe on the back of Aidan Oak now. The gap between Oak and Jelinek, 4.2 seconds.
Yeah, it's continuing to ebb and flow this race very nicely indeed. Nick Manders does pit on that lap, unsurprisingly, you would argue, given the damage that he probably succumbed to with that knock against Chatburn and subsequently the wall. Yeah, Martin Thorpe in that BMW very much on the back end of the tiny, tiny little Alpine of Aidan Oak. That car just looks so dinky and so cute. Always makes me chuckle. And then when you see the massive shape of a BMW and then a Chevy behind them as well, it makes it look even smaller. Considering they're in the same class, you wouldn't think there'd be that much of a size difference, would you? But Aidan Oak certainly proving that size doesn't always matter, although has lost a little bit of time to Peter Jelinek ahead of him. I'm sure his focus now, Trinket, will be get Thorpe off the back of me, put a couple of good lap times in, and get up to the back of these guys, and hope that Ruotsalainen and Jelinek start to fight, because Jelinek has closed the gap, as you mentioned. It was 2 seconds as they came out of the pit box a few laps ago. Now Jelinek is within a second and continuing to close that gap.
That's Guertin in the pits now as well.
Yeah, so the only person yet to pit or yet to even see any side of the pit lane is Jack Watson. We've got 32 minutes exactly in the race still to go. Sorry, in the pit window still to go, I should say. So still a lot of time for Watson to make his pit stop. We'll see whether he does serve that now or whether he continues on a little while longer and serves that a little bit later on in the race, as Jongen now serves his stop go 30. This is Dan Tomlinson inside Bedum Hibibovic, outside Sergei Folenko. Is he going to get the move done into Brooklands? He's already got the position. Can he hold on to it though? He's going to hang it around the outside. No quarter given between these two. Into Luffield has got the inside now. Surely that's going to be the move done as they come out of the final, got the second to last corner. I mean, you say it's second to last, doesn't really count. Last one, there you go, right-hander through Woodcote. It's going to be inside. They're going to be side by side as they cross the line pretty much. Going to be pretty much side by side as they go into Copse as well, as Watson now pits from P10. This is going to be the battle for P9 now. Tomlinson up the inside. Although, what is that? I think that's Solenko going to get the inside, going to get the move done. So going to Maggots and Beckett's. Yes, he does. I say gets the move done. Manages after about 7 corners to keep the position. That is fantastic racecraft from the both of them. And now that is Knowles on the back of them now as well. And I think that's another car behind them as well. In fact, no, I think that might be one of the Ferraris lapping them potentially. I can't quite tell. It might be Jongen. In fact, it's Jongen, I think.
It is Jongen after his stop go 30. He's finally out, and now he's back at the back of a 3-way fight, making it a 4-way fight. He definitely will have the pace to get through them, but that's 4 cars he's got to try and get through.
Yeah, it's not what he would have wanted coming to this one. Tomlinson still battling, still side by side of Folenko. This is fantastic stuff from these two. They are battling hammer and tongs between them, but somehow no contact between the two of them at the moment. That's going to be impacting Tomlinson. He's got a bit of a bad line coming out of that corner onto the Hamilton straight. Jongen's going to look up the inside. It's going to be 3 wide as they go into Village, into Farm Curve. Oh, just about much to get through them. Goodness me. There's so much to unpack on this one. Ollie Knowles right at the back of this one. Tomlinson, is he going to look up the inside as they go in towards Village? No, he's not. But we know there's a couple of lines they can take through this one. Jongen's going to look up the inside. Knowles is going to try and look up the inside as well. It's hard to tell what's going on here. Tomlinson loses the position to Ollie Knowles, and Jongen is still sat in the back of this, opportunistic as he is, going to look for a move at any possible point. How on earth has Sergei Folenko managed to come out of this still in P9 is beyond me. Ollie Knowles has got the position on Dan Tomlinson. Jongen is right on the back of Tomlinson now. Is he going to try and make the move into Luffield? Is it going to be a last-minute dive? No, it isn't. Somehow, Trinket, I don't know how, we've managed to get through the best... Well, in fact, it's not even the best part. It's a whole lap through this race with 4 cars that close to one another, and not a single one of them had any shred of contact. That is incredible racing from all 4 of them.
I'm on the edge of my seat. I can hardly accumulate. Oh, Sergei Folenko with a big snap and goes right off, but keeps it going straight. But he
again, somehow manages to be within a second of them, as that's given Tomlinson the chance to get past Knowles once more. So he's back up there. That's Dan Hearn, I think, in front of them. This is the last thing that these guys wanted, was a little GT4 to get up in the mix things. Oh, Dan Hearn's probably there, kind of trembling, thinking, "Oh my God, just let them get past me as quickly as they can."
Please,
Dan Tomlinson
not again.
now. Yeah, no more, please. No more, sir. No more. Dan Tomlinson manages to get himself back up into P9 now. Ollie Knowles looks around the outside. That's not going to be a move that's going to happen through Stowe. He gets a little bit of a snap of oversteer. That's going to promote Jongen up into P10 now. Felenko is going to be looking up the outside into Vale, into club corner, sorry, of Knowles. Felenko gets up the inside very close, nearly taps Jongen as they go into the apex of the corner, but doesn't manage to collect each other. That is now Knowles still or back up into P11. Jongen sits in P10. Felenko sits in P12. And Tomlinson is still just about at the front of this train. And as Ben Brown very rightly points out, so close given it's an hour in. I feel like that's a bit of an understatement. I don't think words can explain how close this all is, considering we're an hour in. Oh, Felenko is a bit deep into Village. Manages to just about keep it on the black stuff. That's going to push him back a little bit, but still there's about a second separating the four of them.
Yeah, Felenko just dropped off a fair bit from that. We've upped Ollie Knowles' interior.
Goodness me, I'm running out of breath. I need to keep drinking to keep my throat from drying up. I'm speaking so much over this particular last couple of minutes. This has been incredible stuff from these four drivers. Ollie Knowles, as you said, now in the cockpit of him, got Jeroen Jongen. Tomlinson goes a little bit sideways coming out of Luffield, and that's going to give Jeroen Jongen a bit of an opportunity maybe to get alongside. He does. He goes to the outside as they go up towards Copse one more time. Is he going to try and hang it around the outside? He is. That's a brave move around the outside, but he manages to get it done. Excuse me. Is he going to keep that move? Is he going to keep that position going into Maggots and Beckett's? Yes, Tomlinson. Sensible move, I feel, from that McLaren driver. Decides to think better of it, doesn't want to go side by side into Maggots and Beckett, sits in behind, and I would expect now, Trinket, as you rightly mentioned, that Jeroen Jongen will look to and probably will start to build a bit of a gap now if he can keep himself on the black stuff over the next couple of laps. He's probably, you would argue, a bit too far away as Tomlinson loses it through Stowe. I didn't see if there was contact there. I looked away for a brief second. So I'm not sure if there was contact between him and anyone as we go into Stowe. It looks like he's not next to anyone at the moment. I'm assuming no one's going to come and collect it. Oh, that was an odd one.
Just he hit the outside curb there.
Yeah, he just caught the outside curb, caught that little bobble on the threading of the curb, and as a result, has lost a lot of time. So that's put him down into P13. So he's lost a position to Sean Hunt as well then. Looking at that, I mean, he did stop and presumably looked like he had to turn the car back on as well. So, unfortunate for him. He was doing so well at that point, managing to hold on to P10, I think it was. And then, unfortunately, lost the position, lost the car on the curb, and had to, unfortunately, restart it down into P13.
And with that, all of the excitement of a four-way fight has now separated into lots of little groups. But still, got Jelinek finally catching up onto the back of Ruotsalainen. So back to some GT4 close action.
Absolutely, it's quite nice. Yeah, I feel like they're doing it for us because I can see this vest is quite close behind Marco L as well. So I feel like they're doing it for us. They're going right. Let the GT3s have a battle so they can catch it on the stream. They've done that one. Now let's get the GT4s closer again. I feel like they're all there. They're puppet masters for us at this moment in time. They want to battle when they want to battle, not when we need, especially when we need them to. Nice of them to do so.
Ruotsalainen still managing to keep the pace on Jelinek for the most part. It's been fairly close for a good few laps. We'll see how this plays out.
Can you see how long the pit stop times were for these two and Oak as well? I wonder if it will give us an indicator as to whether they've actually changed tyres or not. Because Ruotsalainen pitted quite a bit earlier, didn't he, than Jelinek and Oak. So
yeah, no one on the field has done a stop under 30 seconds.
Yeah, so you'd assume everyone has taken tyres then, which again is sensible. Interesting. So you'd think that Jelinek would potentially have a bit of an advantage towards the back end of the race, given the tyres on Ruotsalainen's car will be a little bit more worn at the back end of this one. We'll have to remain to be seen.
I can also update Nick Manders after that accident we saw earlier. He was stopped for 1 minute and 50 seconds, so that was a lot of damage he had on that car.
Wow, yeah. Big time damage for Manders. That's put him back. He's at the back of the GT3 field at the moment. So Rainer Ressar, despite his stop-go 30, has got himself back off the bottom of the grid. And in fact, is fighting with Jan Wacker who on this time we've come to see him coming out the exit of Chapel, is on the track instead of in the grass, which is always a good thing to see. And Ressart makes no easy feat of that, gets up the inside into Stowe, he's up into P16, Wacker drops down into P17, and here is Carolus Jurgelis. He is on the back of Johnny Seville. Of course, Johnny Seville, formerly of Pulse Sim Sport, now of Low Fuel Motorsport. So there'll be no love lost between these two. I think the change of Jurgelis going to Pulse Sim Sport predated the departure of Seville. So I'm sure these guys would have raced under the same banner at some point. So don't know too much about how they get on between them, but looks like Jurgelis has got a little bit more pace than Seville at this point in the race, as he's very, very close, almost pushing him through the entry into Club Corner. And it looks to me like it's almost a case of when rather than if for this at the moment. But right at the top of it, it's interesting to note that Zildjić has been entirely untouchable. Trinket, we've got to be honest, he's got the fastest lap of the race. He's 0.7 seconds ahead. That will come back to that in a second, because as Jurgelis is going to look to the outside. Very, very late on the brakes. He's trying to go around the outside of Village. That's not going to happen. Seville gets the elbows out, shifts him out of the way with a little bit of a hip check, which feels appropriate given the size and the weight of that Jag. Going for Aintree's just about alongside.
Just saw Seville going almost fully sideways. My words are coming out, but he lost the back end just a tad bit there. You could see him catching it. So that could have been a bit worse there, but we trust Seville to handle it.
Absolutely. It's that 0TC meta that he's working on at the moment. As Jurgelis does get the move done eventually. That's Ralph Vest ahead of them. And yeah, Jurgelis gets the move done up into P6 from the back of the grid. That is fantastic work from him. And there we go. It's been a matter of time and it's happened again. I think it's in the same spot as well. Again, I feel like I'm seeing the replay once more. That is Jan Wacker, who's off once more into the infield of the Maggots-Beckett Chapel complex. Back up to the battle for what is now P10. These guys have come back together once more. Jongen, as we expected, has started to generate a bit of a gap, so he's got a gap of 6 seconds back to Ollie Knowles, who's got a gap of about half a second back to this man, Sergei Folenko, who is currently sitting in P11. Sean Hunt is a bit further back. I think I saw about 7 or 8 seconds. Yeah, 7 and a bit seconds back to him. And yeah, this is the battle for P10. So a good display from these guys. Rainer Ressart here is on the back of Jack Watson, but he's got the Ferrari of Leighton Austin, I believe that is, coming to put a lap on him as we come into the final 25 minutes of it. As I was going to mention before, Alan Zildjić is still leading the way. He's got the fastest lap. He's leading by 7 seconds. He's been ultimately untouchable in this race so far.
9 seconds now.
9 seconds now. There you go. Just proving me wrong. Thanks for that, Alan. Good of you to do. Ash Coupland is in second. I presume that's not changed. No, it hasn't. He's got a gap of 7 seconds back to his teammate in the Pulse Sim Sport sister car of Leighton Austin. And then we've got a gap of 11.5 back to Shahabi, 8 seconds back to Chatburn, 5 seconds back to Jurgelis, that's 1.8 back to Seville, 11.5 to Girton, 7 or so I think to Jongen, and this is David Hutchison. Is he going to lose it through Maggots and Beckett? He's the first one really we've seen. In fact, no, he's not the first one we've seen today. Ooh, just a little brush of the tyre barrier on the inside. I like that he decided to come back through in Chapel as well, as Jack Watson now decides to exit stage right into there. Is he going to be helped? He is. Ressart in the Cute and Round Racing Porsche just gives him a little bit of a nudge on that rear quarter panel and turns Watson around, and as a result is going to get the move done. Jan Wacker into the pit lane. So he served his mandatory pit stop, so not really sure what that's for. We go back to the battle for P10. Folenko still chasing down Ollie Knowles. Like I said, they've got a bit of gap, bit of breathing room back to Sean Hunt behind, so chance for them to really kind of give it. They'll all throw the kitchen sink at each other, as it were. And this is the closest battle we've got on track at the moment. Dan Tomlinson closing back up to the back of Sean Hunt once more, so he's starting to make a little bit of pace back after he lost the car going through Stowe. And Jurgelis has been turned, I think, by Johnny Silver. In fact, I don't know if he has been turned. I mean, looking at where he is now, I'm assuming he has been because he's got a few GT4s for company. Oh, that's clumsy. That is clumsy. It feels to me. Oh, and then gets a knock from Seville for good measure. So that's what we did see. But with the original point was that of the Maserati of Lindblom, I want to say,
I believe
turning
that was Lindblom's
Jürgelis.
one, yes.
Yeah, and that as a
And he's
result,
flashing him now.
adding insult to injury, Jürgelis has now got a drive-through penalty for track limits as well. So, not the 30 seconds that he would have wanted. Luckily, we don't see any retaliation from Jürgelis. Wouldn't have expected it, to be honest. I've commentated on him a number of times now. Always the consummate professional, it has to be said. However, I'm sure he'll be a little bit frustrated in the cockpit of that Porsche. All that work to get past Johnny Seville, just to be turned around and then given a nudge by Seville for good measure as well. Falenko now tries round the outside, can't get the move done on Knowles. These guys have been battling Trigger for what it feels like an eternity. I've got to be honest, I feel like we've not seen them apart at all in the past hour of this race, pretty much.
Well, these two fighting each other as well. Tomlinson and Hunt. After Tomlinson we saw drop down, so he's trying to regain some of those positions. Jürgelis now serving his drive-through.
Yeah, Tomlinson looking around the outside into Brooklands. This is a good move. You can get it done. He has lost a bit of the back end, though. I wonder if, in fact, I don't wonder if, I'm pretty sure he's going to have cooked those tyres with that spin going into Stowe, because if you see him now, he's sliding that McLaren quite a bit. So I think he's struggling maybe a little bit with some scalded and some worn tyres from what I can see. But Tomlinson giving it his all, wants to get back up into the top 12 and is very, very close to doing so. Back in the GT4 class, Dan Hearn still leading the way. He's got a very tidy gap back to Ilpo Ruotsalainen, who has started to gain a little bit more time back on Peter Jelinek as well, who is actually very slowly but surely falling back into the clutches of Aidan Oak behind. So we might still see that battle reignite, just not for P2 but for P3 in class. Martin Thorpe has dropped massively off the back of Aidan Oak, so nothing really Thorpe can do to strengthen his credentials going into the final race. Of course, he's leading the GT4 Championship at the moment. Tomlinson looks at the inside into Stowe, outside into Club on Hunt. He's going to try and get the move done. Again, Hunt just puts that car in the prime position to avoid losing that place, and continues on for at least a few more corners in P12. It feels like unlucky 13 for Dan Tomlinson at the moment, because he just cannot, for the life of him, get past that McLaren of Sean Hunt, it seems.
Quick replay on that one.
Absolutely, this is Ollie Knowles trying to carve his way through the GT4 pack. He's got Hutchison very close for company. Oh, and that's Marco L who catches the back end of him there and spins him round. Not something that either one of them would have wanted. Ollie Knowles losing a few seconds back, and the position ultimately to Sergei Falenko as well. Fortunately, had a bit of a gap back to Sean Hunt, so hasn't lost more than one position. As we see, Daniel Tomlinson pointed the wrong way, as is Sean Hunt. I wonder what has happened there.
I literally swapped over to it as it happened. Let's get it on board.
Your
the camera
timing
angle's
is
not too good.
impeccable. Oh,
That was the frame I saw, was just the tiny bonk.
Yeah, not the best move in the world from Tomlinson there. I would like to see that he'll give that position back, but remains to be seen if that will happen. He hasn't done. Hunt was dropped a little bit further back. In fact, dropped quite a way back.
Yeah, he was yellow flagged for quite a bit there.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
he
not
was
sure
facing
why.
the wrong way on the track, so had to reverse around or something.
Yeah, just managing that rejoin properly, which is never the worst thing in the world to see. Here's David Hutchison getting past and up the inside of Nick Manders. Oh, wow, look at that move from Nick Manders. What a return and mover there as they go through Stowe. Lost the position to Hutchison on the apex of the curb. Kurt Corner managed to get the move back done through the midpoint and the exit of Stowe. That is exactly how you regain a position almost immediately from Nick Manders there, who of course is battling back up the road after that coming together a little while ago with, I think it was Aidan Chatburn, when they were a bit further back, when one of them hadn't served their pit stop. Who is that just behind him? It's the Porsche of Ollie Knowles. Interestingly, I don't think that is for position. No, it doesn't look like it is. I think that is
Oh.
a lapped car. Oh, as Jack Watson gets us drive-through penalty for track limits. So that's going to promote Hutchison up a position. Oh, my word. A lot of oversteer from Ollie Knowles there. He's making this lapping of David Hutchison rather difficult indeed. There we go. I think he should finally have that move done now. Like I say, not for position, just for the sake of an extra lap on front on top of the number 10 7-Up Yoshi racing car. As it seems, we've started to have a few gaps form as we come into the final knockings of this race. We're pretty much, well, we're definitely into the final quarter of this one now with 17 and a bit minutes to go. No issues with anyone not serving any pit stops before the end of the pit window. Everybody has served a stop. Badam Habibovic is back in the pit lane once more. Didn't see him get a drive-through or anything, so it looks like that is an unscheduled pit stop as Vidoni gets his second drive-through of the race.
That's us up to 5 drive-throughs now.
I was going to say we need a drive-through counter.
Let me pull it back up again. I had it ready and I was like, I'm not sure if I'll do it this time around. It's not too bad for it this time, but whoop, there it is.
Yeah, it's an easy place to get a drive-through penalty for track limits. I feel here because there are so many corners where you want to be going fast, and if you just push it that little tiny bit too far, there goes your penalty, and you're done. There you go. I've just watched it back because he drive-throughs 5. I keep forgetting that I'm watching just your copy of ACC and not the stream. So when you're saying I've just put it up on the screen, I'm thinking, going, well, I can't see that. That doesn't seem right to me. But there you go. I could see it now. So drive-throughs 5. Love to see it.
Just had a yellow flag for Tomlinson. Must have just gone off road for a second there, but still going at speed, so nothing too bad.
Yeah, seems that way. Up at the top, though, it's plain sailing still for Alan Zildzovic. 10 seconds is now the gap back to Ash Coupland. 13 seconds the gap for him back to Leighton Austin, his teammate. Shahabi a further 11 seconds back from him, and Chatburn rounds out the top 5. As you mentioned, sadly, no one's really that close to each other at the moment. And the closest battles we've got on track right now is that of Jelinek and Ruotsalainen, I believe, or at least of what I can see.
Yeah, it's still just over a second. It is dropping though. It's just dropped down to 1 second now.
Something to keep an eye out for over the next couple of laps. See if we can get that battle for P2. Dan Hearn, of course, leading the way. Excuse me, in the race in the GT4 class. Sorry, at the moment, that's the words I'm looking for. I'll put my teeth back in at some point. You can tell I've been away for a couple of weeks. Yeah, so Aidan Oak really not making the indents he would have wanted. I mean, to be fair, Oak and Jelinek were very closely matched in terms of pace anyway, weren't they? It was really not... There was no real major kind of pace between one or the other, so it's unsurprising that they've continued in a similar vein to what they were like before. Here is Luke Sherlock, number 27 car, one of our race winners this season, of course. Took the win at Monza, if my memory serves me correctly, which normally it doesn't, so I'm hoping that I've got that right. If you think otherwise in the chat and you want to be one of those people in the chat who corrects me at every point, feel free. I'll take it.
Got some traffic on the way through now with Ruotsalainen, so I think Jelinek is going to get some time back.
Yeah,
he's just up there now.
Within a second now, that Chevy just ahead of him. So this is going to be the battle for P2, and it looks like it's going to come to a head towards the back end of this penultimate race of the season, of course, here at the Silverstone circuit. As I mentioned a few times before, final race of the season, round number 9, is a 90-minute finale at Spa-Francorchamps next weekend. So make sure if you haven't done already, you've hit that subscribe button and you've got the little bell notification ticked, and you make sure that you're here for the season finale next weekend. Same time next week, Sunday evening at 7:45. David Hutchison here has got Jan Wacker ahead of him now, excuse me. Again, timing tower on the left, a little bit delayed.
No, he's onto the pit.
As Hutchison, interestingly, decides to serve a pit stop as well. Not what I would have done myself, but each to their own. and all that. Jongen now is very much on the back of Thibaut Gurton. That is Thibaut Gurton ahead of him on track. So it's 0.8 of a second between the two. That's a very, very wide run through that corner as we get a drive through for car 667. That is Jan Wacker. So interestingly, Hutchison pits and Wacker feels like he wants to get close to him again. So I've gone, there you go, I'll have a drive through and I'll get close to you once more. As Jongen goes at the inside through Club, very close and just about loses, doesn't manage to get the position. That pace of the exit of Club Corner means that Gurton could hold on for at least a couple more corners for that 7th position. However, looking at the pace trinket that Jongen's got, it looks like it's only a matter of time before the Dutchman gets past and back up into P7. It's really a case of what could have been for the number 75 car, because of course, 79 car rather, because that stop-go 30 has completely ruined his chances of any sort of podium position that he was pretty much kind of turned in for, to be completely fair.
Oh, my mind's drawing a blank. But yeah, it could have been a close fight at the front there with the people. They might have been able to get close, but Silzovic has been setting 158s just this whole race. He's just flying, but everyone up to the top 7, they're all 10 seconds apart each. Yeah, the closest fight we do have is these two.
Yeah, I mean, Jongen is essentially pushing Gurton through Kopp's corner there. Still can see that Jelinek still sitting behind Ruotsalainen, 0.8 of a second, the gap between those two at the moment. So this is very much the closest one on track. Hutchison has returned from pit lane. He's back out on track. Jan Wacker still has his his drive-through, to serve. And that's Dan Hearn. Those guys are coming past. Look at how close they are. You can barely put a piece of paper between them as Jongen jinks to the right-hand side, inside line as they go into the braking point for slow down the hanger straight. Jongen's going to get the inside line, and it looks like that's going to be in the books as easy as you like. Jongen gets a little bit squirrely coming through the exit, just a little bit of oversteer coming out of the corner. Job done. Gurton down into P8, Jongen up into P7. Sadly for him, though, I don't think he's going to be able to gain 11 seconds up Johnny Seville in the next 11 minutes. So I'd expect that's pretty much where those guys, in fact, it's probably where the entire top 7, possibly 10, are going to finish, given any changes or any incidents or any mistakes that we see in the final 10 minutes of this one.
I just had 2 yellow flags in a row and nothing to see.
The race director is telling you lies, clearly. Here is Jelinek, still on the back and within a second of Ilpo Ruotsalainen, still trying to get back up into P2 in this race. He's been battling hammer and tong for that second place since the start of this race. First half of the race, he was battling with Aidan Oak for P2. Second half of the race, he's been battling, he's been closing slowly but surely on Ilpo Ruotsalainen. He's still not really been close enough from what I've seen, or at least what we've seen so far, to say that he would actually get that move done. Another couple who have battled the entire way pretty much through this race, it feels, are these two, Ollie Knowles and Sergei Folenko. As they go through Luffield one more time, up onto, I think it's going to be the 39th lap of this race for these two. Still super duper close between them. I feel like, again, every time they've started to kind of disappear from each other trinket, they've just fallen back into each other's arms. It's like a loving embrace between the two of them throughout the hour and 20 minutes that we've seen. Oh, Dan Hearn off through, I think that's Maggots and Beckett's. I think, has he been caught up with one of the GT3s? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the GT3 of Hutchinson lost the back end there and just came right across Dan Hearn's nose, but luckily I think he's got a big enough gap to hold on to it for now. It's still 18.9 seconds.
Yeah, got more than enough of a gap. Hutchison looks like he's retiring from this one. He has gone straight back to the pit lane. Martin Thorpe has lost his car as well. I think that was Sean Hunt who was in that as well. So Sean Hunt been in the wars. It was, yeah, at the back end of this one. Is he? Oh no, he's on an escape road. I was about to say, is he leaving the pit? Is he in the pit lane? But no, he looks like he's leaving the pit lane because that is the exit pretty much of the pit lane through Kopp. So Sean Hunt in the wars once more. Ollie Knowles still on the back of Sergei Folenko. I feel like this has always been the case throughout this one. They've got a big enough gap to Dan Tomlinson behind that they can afford to battle a little bit more aggressively if they need to. However, any incidents may potentially cause them to lose a position to that Haribo Esports car just in the distance behind. So go into Village, loop in, go round into the loop and onto the Wellington Straight. Sadly for Ollie Knowles, that Porsche is not the fastest thing in a straight line as they come up behind. I think that's Dan Hearn just ahead, who's licking his wounds a little bit. And luckily for him, still leading the way in the GT4 class, hoping he won't get caught up as an innocent bystander in any other GT3 instance like he did a moment ago. Although it's worth drinking, we'll probably keep an eye on the gap between Ruotsalainen and Hearn, just to see if there is enough damage that might potentially give Dan a little bit of cause for concern. At the moment, though, it's still 20 seconds, so still plenty of gap for him to work with.
Yeah, could have been much worse, and that would have been another race for Dan to, you know, I think you know how to put it.
Forget, get frustrated about, throw the toys out the pram. Luckily, like you say, look, he's got so much pace on the guys behind him, it doesn't really matter. It's interesting looking at these two guys' lines through Mags and Beckers. I don't know whether that was Felenko's ideal line, but it certainly helps him going out of Chapel, because look at the gap he gains onto the Hangar Straight. That is, I can't quite see who that is ahead of them. I'm presuming that is a GT4. That is the GT4 Sherlock, I believe. As all Knowles,
you really see Knowles is struggling with that car. I think
yeah,
his tires are royally gone for him at this point. When did he stop? 37 minutes ago. Felenko stopped 33 minutes ago, so there's only 5 minutes between them on tyres.
Yeah, I wonder if Knowles has just... I mean, Knowles has been sliding around the entire race anyway, and that's... I'd argue that's a characteristic of the Porsche anyway, because it's... Especially the older Porsche. I've not driven the newer Porsche yet, but the older Porsche was always very susceptible to lift-off oversteer, wasn't it? So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he's just run the tyres a bit too aggressively in this second stint, and as a result has lost a little bit of time on this lap to the McLaren of Felenko.
Not to mention with the fuel tank at the front and the engine at the rear, coming to the end of the race now, it's going to be quite light on fuel, and it's going to be light on the front, heavy on the back.
Absolutely. Always something that used to drive me insane trying to drive that Porsche when I first picked up ACC. It was the first car I went to because I thought it looked the nicest, and I realised very quickly it was not the easiest to drive. So moved on to something a little bit more towards my taste at the time. Here we go, Peter Jelinek still, in fact, he's about as close as he ever has been to Ruotsalainen. Still behind him, of course, but as close as he has been in this second part of the race. That is the Pole Sim Sport Ferrari of Ash Coupland. Just getting past them. I'm wondering whether Jelinek will want Ash to potentially make life a little bit more difficult for Ruotsalainen, which he doesn't, as they go into Brooklands. However, he is very, very much on the back of that Chevy as they go into Luffield another time. 5.5 minutes left to go in this one. Don't quite know where Zildzovic is on the track. We're probably looking at 3 laps to go, I would think. But given I've no idea where he is on the track, I don't want to make a definite assumption or not. Either way, Jelinek still has enough time, you'd argue, to get a move done. Hutchison looks like is very much out of this race. He is dropping down the back end of the grid now. He's still in pit lane, so he will not presumably come back out into the race, which means all the GT4s will essentially gain an overall position, which will probably feel quite nice. Support for Peter in the chat from Matt Holman, lovely to see. Probably nothing to do with the fact that Peter's racing in the oNiD Racing Stronger car, but must just be a coincidence, I'm sure, given that Matt's got his little spanner next to his name in the chat.
Yeah, it's good old Matt Holman.
Absolutely, a name I have seen on a significant number of occasions, and never in a bad way. Matt, I will just quickly slip in there before you think I'm judging you at any point. Never in a bad position. So the battle for P10 still going on. It says 1.1 second on the interval, but it's not. You can definitely see that is not a 1.1 second gap. Felenko is very much back up, and oh my goodness me, that looked like I think that was Blunkvist just going a little bit wide through Brooklands, and I was worried for a second that he might come back onto the track and potentially impact Ollie Knowles' race. He doesn't, fortunately.
Matt Holman and Chad.
Ha ha! Oh, no, sorry, pa. Jelinek losing a bit of time, down to 1.1 second the gap between Jelinek and Ruotsalainen now. So Matt Holman's supportive Peter has ultimately seemed to have pushed him further away. Oh, Knowles to the inside into Beckett's. Goodness me. That was nearly a very opportunistic move. I'd have given him a good clap if he'd have managed to pull that off, because that was super duper close. Didn't manage to get it done in the end as they go on to the hanger straight another time. As they go down towards Stowe, they're still very, very close together. That would have been one of the moves I've ever seen if he'd have managed to get it done there, because you just don't see a move through Maggots and Beckett's, and he nearly, very, very nearly pulled that off.
Yeah, fighting down to the wire now. It's the last couple of laps coming through now. Zildzovic is about halfway around the lap on his current lap, so yeah, 2 laps to go.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, 2 laps to go. So penultimate lap for these guys. In fact, maybe, oh my word, oh my god, I thought Ollie Knowles was going to lose it then. Got very, very wide going through Abbey and in towards Farm. Luckily, holds on to it for him. Wonder when we'll see a bit of a last-ditch move from the treble 11 Porsche.
I tell you what, Jongen's caught up to Seville.
Oh my word, yeah, he has done. I wonder how that's happened. You'd assume Seville has made some mistakes somewhere, because Jongen is still in the low 59s. So it's going to be 3 potential battles as we come on to the last couple of laps. Jelinek within a second again. He's just over half a second back, as I can see from the time in tower. So, Trinket, you're going to be a busy man on this last couple of tours of this circuit, because you've got 3 battles to keep an eye on. Ultimately, not for the win. However, still a few battles to keep an eye on, no less. And this looks like one that could be very, very spicy indeed. 2 very, very quick drivers, 2 very consistently quick drivers as well. Jongen only down here due to the fact he had that stop go 30 midway through his race. Ash Coupland gets around Luffield. There you go, Alan Zildzovic on to the final lap then. His last tour of the Silverstone circuit for this one. He is a mile ahead of Ash Coupland. He just simply needs to keep it on the black stuff, and he will have that win. So we can focus ourselves, until he comes towards the back end of the lap at least, on some other battles. Jelinek still all over the back of Ruotsalainen, and they're going on to their final lap of the race now. As you can see, they're coming through Luffield for the penultimate time. Jelinek will look to see when he can make that move. Jongen round the outside. Is he going to try and look at it through the loop? He's not. He is very much forcing the issue though. As they go through Aintree and onto the Wellington straight, that Ferrari can be pretty slippery in a straight line. As you see, Seville jinks to the inside. He's going to cover off to the left and the inside into Brooklands. Goes to the right again. A little bit of movement on the back straight. Is Jongen going to try and hold it round the outside? He's going to be given no room at all, unsurprisingly, from Seville. Oh, nearly got there, the inside of Luffield. There is, I think that is Lindblom, who's just in front of them in that Maserati. Yes, it is. So he's going to cause a bit of an issue for these guys as well. But ultimately, Seville manages to hold on to position for now as they come on to their final lap of the race. As it stands, it's still Seville leads Jongen, which is now the battle for P6. I thought it was the battle for P7 a minute ago. Can't have been, because I can still see all 31 people in there. Jelinek is very much trying to get the move done. That's Shahabi getting involved as well. That's going to be horrible for Jelinek, because that's going to put a GT3 car between them. You'd have to hope in Jelinek's shoes that Shahabi is going to impact Ruotsalainen in the same way, but he doesn't. So that's going to push a massive gap between them. That might be that done, as here we see Zildzovic rounds the final couple of corners, through Luffield for the final time, through Woodcut once more. He's going to take the win in the penultimate round of this season, takes the GT Am victory once more. He's done that a couple of times already. Always Jongen just gets pushed out wide, trying to make the move into club on Seville. As you see, Ash Coupland will eventually come through to finish P2 in the overall and Am class. Leighton Austin will take the pro victory in the GT3 class. This is Ollie Knowles trying to get past. In fact, has got past Sergey Valenko. Lost position again round the outside of Stowe. Is he going to try to get the move done? He can't on this occasion. This is their last lap of the race. When is the last ditch move going to happen? Jelinek still behind Ruotsalainen. I don't think that position is going to change. I think there's too much, between them. But this is going to be the one we want to focus on as they come across. See, Shahabi comes through in 4th place. Wesley Knowles goes over the curb and loses it. Oh, no, that's not the way you want it to end. Oh, heartbreak for the Porsche driver. Jongen still trying to get the move done on Seville as they come in through Brooklands into Luffield. Seville just hugs that inside line. He's stopping any form of cutback from the Dutch driver in that Ferrari. And as they come through the final couple of corners, Seville will hold on to 6th place, just ahead of Jeroen Jongen. How he has managed to do that, given the pace and how quickly Jongen has caught up to him, is unbelievable. Jurgelis will come through in 9th place. Chatburn came through in 5th place in the end. Valenko will round out the top 10. Tomlinson gets ahead of Knowles in the end. This is Nick Manders trying to get the move done on Jack Watson. Somehow we've managed to just get loads of action right at the end of this one. Everything kind of culminating in a right spicy dash at the end. Jack Watson's going to hold the inside line as Seville did a couple of moments ago. Nick Manders will come through in P15, Jack Watson P14, Jan Wacker P16, and Dan Hearn will win the GT4 class in this one. Finally gets that elusive class win that he's been looking for. Nick Manders, interesting end to the race from him, but wow, it felt like, I mean, I don't know where to start, because we had so much coming. The fight for the lead was very a la Verstappen, really. I mean, Zildjić just disappeared off and never really came back, to be quite frank. But we were blessed with action pretty much all over the show, weren't we, this evening? That was fantastic stuff to watch.
Yeah, it quietened down towards the end, but like right at the end, I just noticed a whole bunch of gaps that were like 2 seconds come down right to the wire. That was a lot to keep a hold of, but Dan Hearn managing to keep the lead of the GT4 race and take a victory.
Yeah, just about managed to hold on in the end. I mean, that was lots to pick up on. I mean, yeah, we had a really spicy front end of the race. The middle part was very good as well, because there were loads of strategy calls, people coming out of pit lanes. We're seeing lots of different kind of strategies playing out, people coming out in different positions, undercuts, overcuts, all that sort of stuff. And then at the end, like I say, I mean, it just culminated. It was like you'd put the water on to boil and it had just kind of tippled over right at the end, and we saw 5 battles all on the last lap for positions, which is exactly what the doctor ordered. I'm glad I came back now. But that was worth coming back for. That's fantastic. Really, really thoroughly enjoyed that.
Lots of great racing in this series. It's certainly picked up from the first few rounds. Just watching the highlights now, when we're actually on board with Renault Racer, because they were the first person in the service, we actually get to see what happened.
Oh yeah, this
happened.
Oh yeah,
go. That's what happened.
Martin Thorpe, I think, but then Sherlock. Oh, dearie me. Yeah, few people caught up in that one in the end. Luckily, everyone managed to get to the end, which was a good thing. No, I suppose, would you call the retirement of what am I trying to say? David Hutchinson in the end, because he didn't get to he's in the pit lane in the end of it. Otherwise,
voice is getting a little bit scrambly at the moment.
Oh well, at least that happened after the race, I suppose. Never the worst thing in the world. But I suppose if that is happening, clearly that is someone upstairs telling us that we probably had too much of a good thing. So I think we'll wrap things up there. Trinket, thank you so much as always for keeping abreast of everything. You've been kept very busy tonight, and I'm sure you've deserved a bit of rest after that one, because there was so much to keep an eye out for. Ahead of that, we'll be back here for the oNiD Racing Multiclass World Cup season finale at Spa-Francorchamps next weekend. There will be loads of streams happening on the oNiD Racing channel in the meantime between now and then, so make sure, if you haven't done already, I'll tell you once more, just for good luck, to make sure you've subscribed to the channel. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. It gets us out into the algorithms, shows everyone else the streams, and you can have chatter with everybody else in there. Thank you to everyone who has joined in the chat as well. Until next time, my name's been David Russell. I've been joined by Trinket Tass in the commentary box of this one, and we'll see you this time next week. So have a wonderful week in the meantime, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.